shook.
Hello.
Why you look so sorry?
It's all good. It's all good. Hello. Welcome to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we have a show for you today. As everyone knows, what June is known for most is it being Men's Health Month. So in honor of Men's Health Month, I've decided to put together a panel of the manliest men I could find. None of them accepted my invitation, so you get what I could get, right? So here we are. This is what we got. We're gonna run with it. The show must go on. But yeah. Speak of the devil, we got our last contestant in here. Hello. But yeah, we're just gonna talk about what it means to be a man and masculine issues, problems that we face, etc. Should be a fun time. If you are on YouTube, make sure you like the channel and subscribe if you haven't. If you are on Twitch, feel free to follow me if you haven't. And with that, I guess I'll open it up with a question to the panel. What does being a man mean to you? And I want to start with counterpoints. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Wait, dang it, it's not working on my end. Anyways, I'll just talk for you guys and then I'll fix my audio on my end. What does what does being a man mean to me? So I think a man is an adult human male, number one. And then I think number two, it can be a trans man who is fulfilling the social roles of masculinity. And I think that when it comes to masculinity, we come up with like all these different social behaviors, but it is being a little bit more aggressive, being into dirt and grime and guns and trucks and fist fighting and Patrick Swayze and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that kind of stuff. And of course, like, you don't have to fit this specific group of collected stereotypically masculine ideals. But if you do, I think you're fulfilling the social role of a man. And I also think that there's like an archetypical Jungian thing where we have a series of traits that are associated with masculinity that men try to fulfill but never fully realize.
All right, thank you for that. I guess we'll get into it when we get into it. Team, hello.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
It's going. I'm excited that this will be your first appearance on my show. I've been trying to get you for a little bit, but
I know, yeah. I took a bit of a hiatus actually to become a dad, so I had to do all the pre-dad shit that you got to do. Like, I had to actually, it leads into
Very
this.
basic.
I had to redo our floors, which I ended up doing the demolition myself because I wanted to save money. Which ended up, anytime you do renovations on anything in your house, it's just like the beginning of a rabbit hole. It's like a YouTube algorithm of construction that you end up going down. And one thing led to another. My foot went through the top of the ceiling, but I had to patch that up, everything. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. So what does it mean to be a man? I think to be a good role model is actually one of the most important parts of being a man. And a lot of times, being a man is not some sort of performative thing. It's just stuff you do that you don't necessarily look for acknowledgement or recognition for. I think like the most manly thing you can do is to just be like, content with who you are, and you're happy with who you are, and you do your life, you live your life the way you want to live it. And I think that's to be content and confident in the way you live your life is a very important thing. And I find a lot of times, like, there's some things that we associate with masculinity. Like, let's say, one thing comes to mind is people who, let's say, make up for, I think, what they lack in their masculinity by like ultra souping up their car, or like getting crazy loudest exhaust you've ever seen so that they can like get the energy or attention on them. And I think that's where there's a big disconnect right now in terms of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a positive role model. But in general, in terms of what counterpoint said, I don't like the distinction. I mean, I like the distinction of man and male. So when you said biological, a man can be a biological distinction or something, I like just saying, like biologically male or female. And then a man can be, of course, anyone who identifies as, so in society as what we in society acknowledge as being a man. So right now, having a beard would be, as according to this panel, would be what being a man would would include. But back in the day, like if you used to get your ears pierced, it used to be a very effeminate thing. But now, things change. Now I have my ears pierced. It's very normal. No one even questions it. So I don't know. It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I don't ask I don't ask the easy questions here, at least at the start. But thank you, and yeah, we'll get into it. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, please.
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah, what does being a man mean to you?
Yeah, so a man would be that which someone who has filled the masculine role within society. I think it's important that we explore what the purpose of this role is, and I think the reason for this role and the reason this gender role exists is it does serve, I think, an incredibly important purpose, which is to provide a supportive role in parenthood and society generally. And the characteristics that I think emphasize the ability to provide this function are things like stoicism, financial capability, protective ability, independence, and something that I think is dwindling, unfortunately, which is the ability to maintain self-respect.
I guess we'll get into what those things mean, especially the self-respect, when we get to the open. Another first-time guest on my show, valued member of our community, 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙. I don't even know how to say it.
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, yeah.
𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙,
And
okay.
what I was saying earlier, Lactoid, I don't know how you could look so calm, dude. I'm nervous, dog. I've had conversations with Lactoid. I'm sweating bullets, boy. And I'm kind of with Heem is how you say it, correct? Like, I come from the position of the father, the brother, the uncle. I think masculinity, whether more to counterpoints and stuff like that, whether you be a biological male or somebody that are trying to go down this path, it's a thankless job. It's full of things like you should be trying to live towards some kind of integrity, some kind of thing like that, pride, honor, but not in the new sense of like where pride can be disgusting, but like when we talk about national pride or anything like that, but like where you should be proudful of your accolades and what you have achieved in your life and shit like that, like hold that up, man, because even though it may be small, like other people believe in that, but yeah, it's a thankless job and you should have a lot of integrity and be able to move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. No need to be nervous. We won't bite.
I
I
still
promise.
am,
It'll
dog.
be okay. It'll be okay. No stranger to my show. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, what's being a man mean to you?
For me, I think a
Hold on,
man's a
you're little
protector.
loud. Okay, try again.
How's it now?
Better. Go ahead.
Better. A man's a protector. It's a provider. Someone that strives for values that benefit his family and the society around him. He's the outward-facing element of the family unit. That's what I'd say.
Okay. And last but not least, someone I hope has a camera and can turn it on. Darius, go ahead. What's being a man?
Hey, how you guys? Hey, how you guys doing today? I just wanted to get you. I'm working on my camera right now. Give me 1 second because I'm working on the audio in the background. But so I'm glad where you asked me what does being a man mean to me, and not what is masculinity to me, because manhood and masculinity are not the same thing. They are intertwined due to the way we're socialized as young boys to young men, and because of biological factors. But to me, being a man is being strong, courageous, having mental fortitude, being a protector and a provider. And a man, or at least an apex male to me, is somebody who builds a world that they can envision themselves wanting to protect.
Okay. Wanting to protect. So we got some common themes, I feel, in this, right? But there's one thing that was mentioned that I kind of want to ask about. That 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 said, and 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 mentioned that was dwindling. Self-respect. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙? What do you mean when you say self-respect, and why do you think that's, one, a masculine trait, and two, why is that dwindling? Should women not have self-respect?
I think women have self-respect. I think that a lot of the feminist movement over the past several decades has emphasized to great success for, I guess, in feminine power, this sort of independence from men, and this sort of respect divorced from what men think of you, right? At least socially and culturally. This has kind of been the new standard that's been pushed. Well, I don't think men have done the same thing. When it comes to, I guess to briefly describe why I think it's kind of in the decline, I want to the two things that were just said after me. First, for outward-facing element of the family unit, I think that's critical as to my explanation, and building a world wanting to protect. Right. If you're going to fill a particular role, I think it's reasonable to make sure that that world or that sort of social structure that you're protecting is worth your time. Right. Is worth it's something worth protecting. And I see so often there's a lot of men who will chase after women who don't have no respect for them at all, or will idolize female celebrities who talk shit about how terrible men are. And I wonder. I guess my question is, why would men be comfortable doing that, knowing that it's an entirely one-sided relationship? It's an entirely one-sided conduct. Where go ahead.
I would say this is true of women also, though. No, we
Yeah.
think of these rappers, celebrities that talk about extremely misogynistic shit, calling women bitches, like engaging in really like heinous behavior. But women still like lust after these men, right?
I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's the same way in terms of, well, I don't disagree that there's some like levels of sexism, but when you look at, like, for example, right, you have celebrities like Megan Fox who openly go out on public and say men are terrible, fuck men, right? And people are worshiping her.
Really quick. I'm struggling here. What is the difference in your mind between someone who's just putting someone down versus valid criticism? I would consider, so for me, right, being able to accept and take valid criticism is a masculine trait. It's something that a man should be able to do. You should be able to accept criticism or people bad-mouthing you and not let it get like, and not be reactive to it. I'm not saying don't let it affect you, right? Obviously, it's okay to have emotions, things like that. But what I'm saying is it comes to, you don't have to throw a fit about it. You don't have to go on this rant or tweet about it like, oh my God, they were mean to me in the Twitch chat. Oh my God.
I
feel like everything.
I disagree with that, Wick.
Oh, well, Heem, go ahead, and then I want to hear why.
I was gonna say, I feel like every example you could bring up of what 𝕵𝖎 was saying, you could make the exact same the other way with a man and woman role reversed. I think there's a lot of like self-hatred behavior happening online, especially. You could even look at, for example, you were mentioning how women have tons of self-respect or something like that, where I think still, if you look at it, women and femme presenting, whatever, people have probably a more toxic engagement with social media, for example, with like women's figures and the standards that those are upheld to. Whereas for a man, you even look right now, like what is a popular theme for men is like having a little bit of a belly and having that dad bod look. So
that's bullshit.
Which part? Sorry.
Dad bods are bullshit. I have so many studies debunking them, but go ahead.
Debunking dad bods? What does that mean?
Yes.
I think debunking that women like it, I think. Is that what you mean, Darius? Debunking the idea that women like dad bods?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I think a lot of these apply to both sides. I'm not saying that it's worse for men or worse for women. I think that these things, I didn't really get the distinction between why that's applies only one way.
So it doesn't necessarily apply only one way. I think that there is a cultural phenomenon of it disproportionately applying one way. Right? I can name for you like there's several artists, right? Lizzo comes to mind. There's a couple other ones. Meghan Trainor, Megan Fox. You have examples of people who have sort of dedicated a significant part of their career to creating songs specifically about how men aren't shit, men aren't nothing, and if they're not doing something for you, you can just get up and leave, and you should just get up and leave if men aren't doing for you what they should do. And then you just simply, I mean, I can't think of any song. Can anybody, maybe one exists that I just haven't heard.
Oh,
you can hold up.
Women ain't nothing but
bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the past 10 years, did Snoop Dogg release a song? Women aren't nothing but hoes and tricks.
I mean,
Hey,
Is that the only one?
Hang on, wait. Are you
I
saying?
don't-
Are
I
you
can't
saying?
think of-
Yo, one at a time.
Are you
one at a
saying
time.
if we looked at the? Are you saying if we looked at modern rap lyrics that they're not denigrating women?
What I'm saying is that the message in the
gets a
type of
pass.
raps, the type of rap songs that denigrate women tend to be in a sort of sexualized nature where they're, the sort of implicit thing that's being said in the song is they're still desirable, we still want them, but like, haha, insert stereotype here, insert funny stereotype here. Meanwhile, when on the women's side, you have anthems of power that are specifically about if a man isn't doing for you what you want, you should just fucking leave them. There doesn't seem to be a correlating movement when it comes to men. And so what you get are men who take their own relationships with women and their own experience with women very, very personally. And, that's why virgins use as an insult. That's why, part sexual activities uses like a specific weak point in how men think about themselves.
You don't
Okay,
think like
can
the
I-
whole red pill movement isn't like a parallel?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
what
let
he
it-
brings-
The red pill.
Stop! This is going down a weird rabbit hole. Counter, can you save us or no?
No,
I got a good
but I
point.
want to add to the rabbit hole. So,
Great.
but I'm fucking. But here's another part of like masculinity that I think needs to come back a little bit, which is a little bit of like dignity and self-respect. And part of dignity and self-respect is telling people like this to get fucked. And
Yeah,
we call
I
it.
kinda
We
like
call
that.
it. We call it. There's this concept that I did not understand coming up because I don't think I ever saw anybody talking about it, but it's honor. And honor is basically having a vision of how you conduct yourself, conducting yourself within that vision, and then having that vision being socially respectable to your external peers.
Yes.
And we don't give a shit about that in our modern society. It's how many people can you fuck? How much can you drink? How much shit can you own? How many
Exactly.
hoes can you seduce? All that kind of shit. And there's no honor. It's all flash
in
and
a
substance
technical
bullshit.
sense-
So what I would say is, final point, is if you want to have the ability to have self-respect and dignity and honor and the ability to tell people like Meghan Trainor and Beyonce and all these bitches who are shit-talking men to go fuck themselves, then you have to have something that's worthy of respect and
Yes.
honor and discipline and social esteem.
Okay, so what
Hey, can
what
I-
is
can I-
worthy of respect, right? What can a
Okay,
man
so-
have? What can a man have, right? Whether it be a trait or a possession or a skill that you would consider worthy of respect.
I think
Okay,
some of the
so I
stereotypes
wanna answer
that
that.
we came up with. I'll listen.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked what is worthy of respect with, because I have, and I'm glad you kind of brought up what the fact that we need honor as men. I feel like honor is a prerequisite for manhood and the virilization and the completion of the virilization process, right? So to me, honor is something like the uprightness of mind, strength, courageousness, bravado, doing the right thing, like integrity, doing the right thing when you know other people aren't watching, right? Being a pillar of your society, wanting to be wanting to exemplify all the characteristics that are necessary to build and sustain a society in the first place. Things like high intelligence, discipline, chastity when it's necessary. You don't necessarily need to seduce hundreds of thousands of women at the same time to be a man.
But I would say that honor is an integral part of being a woman. What we like
Exactly.
traditional femininity, like
Yeah,
not sleeping
in a different way,
around
though.
despite having the ability to. That's honorable. Taking care of your family and your children despite your whims and desires to want to go into the workplace. That's an honorable thing. That's self-sacrifice. Like I think
I
honor
think
is integral to both masculinity and
Yeah.
femininity.
But we can
Yeah,
split
absolutely.
this in that there are, so we're going to find things that are going to be common between the genders,
Yes.
like telling the truth or being respectable or serving your community or being selfless and self-sacrificial. Those are going to be the same across genders, but what is going to be different is how you fulfill those roles and archetypes. So, it's like an archetype. Like if a woman, instead of taking care of newborn children, she takes care of her grandparents while they're passing on from this world. I'm not going to be like, you're not really a woman because you're not fulfilling the archetypical stereotype of being selfless in a maternal way. I'm going to be like, that's very based of you. You're fulfilling like your archetypical honor thing. But a man can just as capably like fulfill that archetype through a similar way. But then we have things that are for men, like me and my wife, just as an example. We used to live in the country. One of our dogs runs away. We can hear her howling in the woods. We live on next to a federal reserve. So we're running out into the reserve trying to get this dog back. I got a pistol on me, and then we hear literally like no shit, like the fucking growl of like a mountain lion, and like and so like I shit my pants, but I also have like a pistol on me. I step between her and the growl, and we calmly, retreat from the scenario. We do get the dog back without any harm or fuss. But the point being that like in that role, we were in a dangerous situation. I had to keep my head about me. I moved in a direction to protect her. That was part of my social role. And I would not expect her to step in front of me.
So, yes, to distill this a little bit, to kind of shorten it. In order to be an honorable man, one must protect your family, protect others, right?
Yes.
That is a role that is, at least what the panel is considering masculine. Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
I have a question.
Well,
To
sure,
like
go
maybe
ahead.
move it on a little bit. There's a lot of talk online about a crisis of masculinity. Do you guys feel as though masculinity is going through a crisis?
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
I don't think
the word. Can I answer? I don't think the word crisis is appropriate.
Darius,
Maybe,
you can answer once you turn on your camera. Heem, go ahead.
Facts.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I do think there's a crisis of masculinity, and a lot of it has to do not so much. I think a lot of it gets blamed on feminism, but I think more has to do with just like how society has kind of worked itself. We have these nuclear families where men are oftentimes, and women too, but men were traditionally very busy working, and then the emphasis of like men's social life and men's community aspect completely gets dropped. So I'm only 31 years old, and I can't tell you how many of my friends have completely stopped engaging in any kind of thing for themselves. All they do is work and then spend time with their girlfriend if they can or whatever. There's no extra thing that they do for themselves. So I think when I try to advocate for what guys should do, this is easy shit that anyone could do. If you're into any kind of sports, you should join a men's league sports team. I play soccer twice a week on a men's league team. We have a WhatsApp group chat where we banter about soccer. We meet up after the games. We'll have beers. We talk about life. And that aspect.
Oh man.
Is that
Was that me?
Ancestors
No, that's not
got him.
me.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's him.
Half the time it's me, so I'm happy it's not me this time.
Okay.
Got him.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so
okay?
Well,
so
if
counterpoints. One, I'm
Yep.
curious as to what you think the crisis of masculinity is.
yeah, so I think that in
Oh wait,
the 80s,
Heem's back. Heem, are you back?
I don't. Yeah, my internet should.
I
My
can
internet should be
remember.
amazing.
Yeah.
let me-
You
I'll
cut
write it
out
down.
mid rant.
Okay, what I was saying was
Sports.
basically that like
Men who have a sport. If they have a sport.
yeah, I think if you have a sport, you should join a men's league team and stuff, and through that you get an amazing sense of community because you're seeing the same guys every week. You're bantering, you're hanging out after the games. We'll have a beer after the game and stuff, and through that, I feel like you get a very nice sense of fulfillment, and that aspect is missing from men's lives. And I don't think you can blame feminism for that. I think that's just like a societal thing that's just over time we've gotten into our comfort zone, which is just go to work and then just only do your fatherly or husbandly or whatever duties.
I think that's just in
Couldn't
generally
that be
overall like
Well, I want to give
the-
a major Magin.
Sure.
Go ahead, Magin.
I think that just the individual mindset is just overall everybody's now. We don't come together for shit. You know what I'm saying? That's on the male and female side of the spectrum of it. But you're totally on point about like not like I had a bunch of guy friends growing up. We ran out and we did shit on the streets. We acted bad. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of my confidence in who I am and stuff like that comes from that. Being around in that pecking order with my guys, having fun, laughing. running out-
Banter.
Yeah, the boys of summer, right? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you don't necessarily it's a like when you go out, like I've been out with a few guy friends nowadays, and it's a pecking order, but it's like, hey, I am him now. And it's not like
Yeah.
we're all. It used to be we were
Well,
all
you're not seeing
together.
each other. You're not seeing each other as often. So when you do, it's like becomes more and more performative, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Counter. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I wanted to address two things. One, I want to answer your question, and then two, I want to talk about what we were just saying. What my advice to anybody watching this though is, it's one thing to come out and vent about like men don't have spaces anymore, we don't have social clubs, we don't do anything anymore, we don't have a sense of community, et cetera, et cetera. Guess what? Nobody else is going to do it. So you have to be the nexus of the social group. So for instance, when I was in the law enforcement academy, I just invited like a dozen people over to my house, and we all had beers and bullshitted and all that kind of stuff. And like you can feel the awkwardness of hosting, where like the first two people show up, so you don't know if it's going to be weird because not
Out of
too
your
many people are
comfort
going to
zone.
show up. Yeah, and then people start showing up, and they start getting a couple of drinks in, they start talking to each other, they have weird conversations, the awkward stuff sloughs off, and then they start getting comfortable, having a good time, et cetera, et cetera. And then so the hosting is difficult. It creates a lot of social anxiety. You need to be able to get some drinks at least. You should be able to get them some food if you can afford it. But basically, if you're waiting for somebody else to be that nexus of social stuff, those people are so rare that if you're looking around in your group and you don't see anybody who's going to be the social nexus, it's you. You're the social nexus.
Can I reply? So in my social group, I love to be the host. Okay, I'm Persian. Persians are notoriously love to host and have parties and stuff. Okay, so what bothers me is my friends that I love. Okay, I will invite them to shit, and they will they'll be like, I'm tired from work or something like that, and it's like you have to make that effort to go and do the shit, you know? Otherwise, yes, of course, you busted your ass working and you just want to sleep and watch Netflix. That's the fucking what everyone wants to do.
I just want to add before I just want to add before anybody else gets there, so I don't miss it. The thing about it too is you have to bully your friends. Okay,
Yeah.
You have to bully them. You have to say, "Quit being a pussy. I haven't seen you in a year. You know, I'm gonna see at this rate. I'm gonna see you another 5 times before both of us die. I want to see you. Come drink, have some fun. Bring the wife, bring the girlfriend, bring the kids. What my wife or my girlfriend will watch the kids for a minute. We'll figure it out. Stop being such a fucking pussy. And you actually have to be mean and have enough social
But it
rapport.
sucks that we
be
have to
mean
do that,
your
isn't
friends.
it?
It does.
You get to
It
do
sucks.
that.
No, you always had to do that, right?
Yeah, you always did.
You always had to do like, come on, we're going down to the lake. Like, no, I don't. Like, man, stop being a bitch, dog. Like, if you don't bring your ass down, you don't bring your ass
I
down.
feel like
okay,
the
okay,
problem
okay.
is wait one
Always
sec,
been there,
wait
bro.
one sec. The problem is when you're a kid, that's easy to say. Tell your mom to fuck off. You're coming down to hang out with us. But as an adult, when you have responsibilities, being that cop out of like I have to work, I can't do it, I have the meeting tomorrow or whatever, those are like legitimate excuses and so much easier to do than back when we were younger. So that is
That's why
something
you
to
got to
know.
bully them. That's all.
Okay, couple things. Okay, $5 for fondue to say this. In societies that push egalitarianism, is what makes a good man/woman just what makes a good person? Is there a point to distinguish between the two? That's a fair question. But also, I want to talk about something else that I think.
Can I respond to that, Wick?
Just real quick. I want to drive this a little bit, right? And you know, I have questions, right? This is part of why I put the panel together, right? I have questions, I have opinions, and I want to share some of them. For me, when the question was asked, do we think masculinity is in crisis? Absolutely. And I think the biggest vector of crisis for masculinity is responsibility. No one takes responsibility anymore. We have stopped taking responsibility for our own damn problems.
And I
we've
think
decided,
we've all been saying that.
yeah,
like,
we've decided.
low-key, like,
We've
for
been
real.
hitting around it. We've been hitting around
Yeah.
it. But much like was mentioned by 𝕾𝖎 and by Counterpoints, where you have to bully your friends, is because there's like, well, no, I can't do this because of some external force. I have other things I have to do, so I cannot do this. Whereas at the end of the day, it's your choice and you're choosing not to. Yeah, it's hard, but you're choosing not to do this and it's hurting you, right? We are told every day in different ways that there are so many different factors out there that are making it hard to live, hard to meet up, hard to be a man, hard to do these things. Lactoid blames feminism. Other people blame the internet. Other people blame all these other forces. But we stopped taking responsibility. And to me, being a man means taking responsibility and saying, I don't care what external forces are at play. I have a responsibility to do this. I will do it or I will die trying. Anyway, go ahead.
I think Adarius wanted to go, but I want to go after him.
Okay, Adarius.
I want to go too after that, please.
Then I see
Yeah,
I see you too.
I just want to respond to this comment, right? saying that in society they push egalitarianism, what makes a good man a good woman. Well, I mean, even then, biologically, males and females are still different. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, my Twitter handle is up there, so just go ahead and cancel me. But yeah, we still, I mean, men have, in my personal opinion, men have honor to uphold. Women have, a woman with honor is desirable, but it's not a prerequisite for womanhood, in my personal opinion. So, I mean, even then, when we're talking about upholding male honor, I would say something like, again, having, I guess, I grew up watching anime, so a lot of mine is informed by Japanese Bushido. But having the uprightness of mind, understanding your importance to your family, understanding upholding your family values, and exemplifying strong and positive characteristics when you walk out in public. So I just wanted to respond to that and say women aren't held to the exact same standard, and that actually may be a good thing.
Yeah, and then I want to answer use Mark's question. What would I say the crisis of masculinity is? I would say that it is we don't really have media representation. Like, of course we do. Like, there's men all over the place. We have action heroes all over the place, all that kind of stuff. But in the 80s, it was like really stereotypical, really testosterone filled, really like driven home that Arnold Schwarzenegger lift weights, you get the girl, you shoot the bad guy in the face, you're always cool under pressure, you're doing this, that, the other. G.I. Joe, Superman, truth, justice in the American way. And what's happened with a lot of our media is kind of like the anti-hero arc, where you have like Superman like breaking Zod's neck in order to like save lives, but he's like sad about it. Or Breaking Bad, where you have like the cancer-ridden teacher who's dealing meth in order to survive, and he's a fucking badass. So you have all the good attributes and bad attributes mixed up. So like, what am I like? Am I supposed to use like Walter White as like an example for my son? But hold on. So I was gonna say. One of the things about this is sharing the stage, which I think is different compared to when I was coming up. In like the Marvel superhero series and in the Warhammer series that I break down, you have to share the stage with women and with people of color and all that kind of shit, which is different than when I was growing up, which was just the dude was the center of the universe. And I know I see objections, but I want to try to get through this. So social media, I would say, is the other major factor because it's easier to scroll on Instagram and just like see attractive women as like a young single guy and fantasize about being in a relationship with them, etc. You slide into a DM, they reject you, you just keep it moving, etc., versus actually going to the bar and talking to people and trying to build a relationship and meeting people through work and all that kind of shit. And then something important last two things, the correlation between responsibility and purpose. Wick said, like, we don't take responsibility anymore. Jordan Peterson, one of the biggest revelations that he ever showed me was that there is a correlation between your sense of purpose in life and how much you take responsibility for. So you might not be happy because you got bills and kids and dogs and a house to pay for and all that kind of shit, but you will have purpose. You will be anchored to something that is real, that will help you weather the storms of life. Final point. Egalitarian societies, is it just being a good person? Yes, but there's still things that Adarius mentioned, like if you bump into a mountain lion, a good person would step in front of the other person to save them. We're going to default to our biological roles.
So before, I know a lot of people want to go, but just to address something that's come up, right? Like, so people are saying, well, women can be honorable too. Women can be protectors too. Yes, they can. This isn't an exclusive to men thing. When I talk about responsibility, I'm not saying only men can be responsible. I'm saying that men have lost the ability to be responsible. Women, we talk about women all the time. We have all female panels all the time. We can talk about them another day. Okay, gang, let's give us one day. Give us one fucking day where we can talk about us. Okay, one day, one fucking day. Okay, anyway.
I agree with counterpoints. Real quick. I agree with counter. I actually have a point about Optimus Prime. How, I think you've heard this, Wix, how he would save Megatron with knowing Megatron would shoot him right in the back, right? I think a lot of things, again, we're leading away from this whole thing about, like we all said at the beginning, that this is a thankless job, right? You shouldn't care. Like, being average or being anything, like the point of a man is to try to be better, not to be the best. If you get there, cool, then you should try to be better than that, right? And that's just like that statement can equate, like they could go to many things. Like, you should always want to be better, but I feel like a lot of people look to like the men in their family to be the example of that, right? So you have to accept that responsibility of that, but you understand that you may not fulfill the job. Just like being a good parent, it's okay. There's no like course to this. Just do the best you can. I don't know.
Mark? before you explode. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I am far more bullish on masculinity, I think, than anyone else here on the panel. Personally, I don't think there's a crisis of masculinity at all. And I think actually echoing the idea that there is a crisis of masculinity is pernicious and damaging to masculinity. So just to go through some of the things that were said. So I loved it, that talk, Keem, about how men and counterpoints, or how men should like create social bonds, and they should like, talking about broship essentially. Yep, I think that's awesome. That's great. However, you said that, men oftentimes go to work and they're taking care of the family. Isn't that being a man, sacrificing, chilling with the boys and having beers and being a man and just actually doing the hard work to support your family? There's something statistical. However, I would say, although loneliness is a problem societally for both men and women, men actually report higher levels of like social cohesion with their friends than women do. Women have higher reports of loneliness than men do. So I don't think this is an issue that's specifically affecting
just to address that real
masculinity.
quick, Užmark, just to address that real quick. That's because societally, it's much easier, right, for women to be able to report, I'm lonely, I'm feeling isolated. If you do that as a man, it's not taken seriously and you're shunned for it. In a lot of cases, you're seen as less of a man for doing that.
That's
So
the case. But
that makes me, this data, the self-report data, right? This self-survey data, it's immediately
hard to compare.
suspect. It's immediately suspect to me, right?
I've also seen a
Well, the
myriad of
issue
studies
with that is
I've seen so many studies, Užmark, that contradict everything that you just said. I'll post them later.
Please do. Yeah. But the issue is that because what else can we do other than look at self-reporting data? Because if you look at self-reporting data, also men report higher levels of life satisfaction than women do.
What
overall.
can we do? I can
So,
tell
like,
you what
men-
we can do other than look at self-reported data. There are other factors that you can consider, such
Yeah,
as
can I
Something.
respond?
Wait.
Well,
So
a lot of people want
Can
to
I
know.
just finish
finish
one
your
little
point, and I want Heem to respond, then counterpoints. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. I'm
And
unsure about
Lactoid,
what
sorry, Lactoid, be more manly, get more assertive. Anyway, go ahead.
objective.
It's toxic, Wick.
I'm unsure about what objective data we could look at, but I will just finally conclude with that majority of men still do identify as being masculine. Majority of men do like being masculine. And if you look at the data, the more masculine you are, the more happier you are and better life outcomes that you seem to have. So I'm far more bullish on masculinity.
The data that shows that the more masculine you are, the happier you are.
Yep.
That sounds
Yep.
weird to me,
Yep.
but we can come back to that later. I did want to talk to you guys about something that Lactoid and I discussed about a week or so ago, and we brought up earlier today. Never mind the fact he keeps losing to me in debates, but there's something about the internal and external locus of control, right? And I think that I think it brings up a really good point. In my personal opinion, though, I think that a part of hegemonic masculinity, or I call it the most desirable concept aspect of masculinity, would be a man who has a high internal locus of control. He's not blaming other people for his problems. He takes responsibility for his own actions.
I agree. Heem, go ahead before someone else.
Okay. A couple of things. So just going real, this is stupid, but I had to, this is from 5 minutes ago, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. When counterpoints, when you were talking about the movies, I think that was just like how Hollywood was back then. And now we look for more like layered characters. We don't want a character that's like all good or all bad. Like it's not interesting to us anymore. So we need that, like the guy is good, but also bad. And then as for what is it Užmark? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet you too.
What you were saying about, isn't that part of being a man, like working hard and taking care of your family, whatever? I think yes, but there's also part of being responsible, and part of being a man is being able to balance as well. If you just grind, I have friends who work 3 jobs, but they don't need to work 3 jobs. They have a roof over their head. They're saving up money. They're just like, honestly, it seems to me like they've just become addicted to the hustle, especially because I live in a very big city, and a lot of people at the clubs, at the bars are fucking balling. So maybe you feel like I need to feel balling too, or there's all kinds of weird internal dilemmas that we have that drive
masculinity,
us.
Maybe.
I don't know. It could be anything. It could be maybe they grew up in a family that didn't have financial security, so that now they're going all the way to the other extreme of like, no, I'm only gonna have financial security, and that will make me happy. But in general, I think there's like, I don't know. I stream. I'm getting my PhD, and I managed to play in a soccer league once a week. There's no way that you're telling me you can't make 2 hours a week of time for yourself. It's just that a lot of men don't make that effort for some reason, and I don't know why that is. It's convenience factor, and maybe they feel defeated, or they don't know where to seek out these kind of communities. What's the first step? I'm sure is a big hurdle. A lot of times you need someone to connect you to this team. Hey, why don't you come join my soccer team or something like that? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so actually to address that, like stereotypically, why do men act independent to the point that they don't need social bonds? Maybe this is like a white Western thing. I don't fucking know. But I was expected to be emotionally self-sufficient for like a healthy chunk of my life and to not like rely on the validation of external forces in order to be who I am, which is a part of masculinity. But what that can do too is that can make you kind of socially isolated. I remember I went to a new unit in the Marine Corps. I went from Japan to California, and there was this guy who was like really nice to me, and he's like, "Hey man, we should hang out, we should get beers, we should do this, we should do that." And I'm like, this guy wants to fuck me. Like I was like so confused by why he was being so persistent. And the truth was that he was just really fucking nice, and he wanted to be the social, and sorry if I'm holding my eyes, I got fucking bleach in them from the pool. But he wanted to be the local social like nexus, and so eventually he got me to hang out with him, and then I helped reinforce the social group and all that kind of stuff. So what I would just say is, if there's men who are out there who are feeling like they're denying themselves the opportunities for relationships just because they want to appear emotionally self-sufficient, don't do that. You're sacrifice. Like, we only have so much time on this planet, and on top of that, it's gonna go by really fucking fast. I'm 35 now, so I'm like halfway through my life.
And he can't even see. Look, he's losing his vision already.
I can't see because when I was 15 and I opened my eyes in a public pool, it didn't matter. I just took the burn and it didn't matter. Now that I'm 35, my eyes are burning out of my skull. I'm getting older.
There are like, what are they called? Fucking goggles?
Yeah, but you look like a fucking dork.
Toxic man. Well, you're gonna play the.
Yeah, you look really cool right now.
I know. I'm so cool.
Okay. $20 from Non Step on Snake to say, what does the panel think are some strong masculine role models in popular culture? Modern examples, say within the last 5 years.
I can give one.
America, that's it.
Captain America, that's it. Give one, but Lactoid has to go next. So
I got one.
Oh, me? I would say
no.
Ned Stark.
Answer the question. The guy paid $20 for it. Let's answer his question. Then we go.
Goku.
Goku. Okay.
Yes.
Captain America. Who else? Just rapid fire, gang.
Actually, I think he should be the next president of the United States, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Okay, what do you think, Mark? Who's your model?
Ned Stark, Game of Thrones.
Ned Stark, Game of Thrones. What do you think? Him.
Me?
Yeah.
This is gonna be so lame, man. But my biggest role model in life was my fucking dad, bro. He immigrated and got recertified as a doctor in North America. He fucking came here with no money and was the sickest guy ever. So that's what I'm gonna say.
Right.
$5 from Muda Agarwal to say, Connor, rubbing eyes makes it worse because chlorine sticks to the skin. Wash your eyes and hands and don't rub for an hour. So
don't tell me what to do.
Lactoid. Go ahead. Floor's yours.
All right. I got a couple points I want to just rattle off. So first of all, Elon Musk is the answer. Second of all, before we were talking about, I think it's interesting. I think it's telling that when we go around at the beginning and talk about what we think a man is, everybody lays out certain points. And then when we try to drill down on those points, the conversation becomes about women. The conversation becomes, well, doesn't that apply to women too? Isn't that just generally like a good person? And I think part of this, betrays this sort of hyperfixation we have on women's problems generally. But then the other thing it shows is, I think, a lack of acknowledgement as to the fact that because there are biological differences between men and women and different social roles that men and women fill, as Adarius so well said, there's going to be different traits and different social roles that matter differently depending on what gender you're looking at, right? And so while it's true that being independent or being financially supportive can be important for women too, given certain circumstances, more often it's more important to emphasize that in men because of the role they're going to fill later in life through fatherhood. There was also a conversation as to internal locus of control. It's absolutely true that I think that people need to be focusing on improving their own situation first, but having an internal locus of control doesn't mean we can't also honestly evaluate some ways in which the environment affects us and ways that, especially on a broader, higher order level conversation like this. We talked about making men's only spaces. I'm curious, do you think I think that to some extent, those are being broken down a little bit, right? One example I can think of is the Boy Scouts, right?
I was just about to say that.
Yes, this
Boy
is an
Scouts.
example of where young men used to go to spend time with other young men and to learn about being a young man, and now it's not, right? Is that not an issue?
And you're
What
right.
happened
Even
to
on
Boy
top,
Scouts?
hold on,
Is
real
it
quick.
over?
Even on top of
Pretty
that,
much.
a lot of states, like my state, Oregon, they're getting rid of sports, like more masculine sports, like football, because a lot of kids ain't coming out for stuff like that. Barely even soccer, too. You know what I'm saying?
Could that have anything to do with CTE, more awareness? Maybe parents are less likely to put their kids in football.
I don't know.
Wait, hold
I
on.
think
Before we explain away all this shit, I want to reinforce Lactoid real quick. So in a conversation specifically about what's plaguing men, we have to shift the conversational dynamic to why it's okay that men are not the focus. That's literally what we've done every single time we brought up a men's issue. And then two, aren't women just as fucking capable? This is the default
don't care.
conversational pattern.
No.
Hold up. I'm not done yet. And then on top of that, what's masculine, the default, is to not give a fuck. That's the default. Somebody takes something from you that you're not supposed to be a little bitch or a pussy about it and be like, oh, you're talking about women again? My feelings are so hurt. You're just supposed to go, yeah, I guess women got fucking problems too. And so that's like the emotional expectation that is not expected of other people. You know, basically minorities and the transes and the gays and the women's and all that kind of shit. You talk about their problems, we're going to talk about their problems. You talk about men for fucking 30 seconds, and we got to talk about how their problems are not really problems, or how there's variables that explain away how their problems are not the cause of anything that's ultimately nefarious.
Go ahead.
Please,
Hugh.
can I? Yeah. Okay.
Hugh,
Real quick. Okay. Couple of things. Okay. The reason that we're explaining it is to try to understand the problem. We're
I don't think
saying
you're trying to understand. I think you're trying to explain it away.
Well, part of understanding a problem is diagnosing how we got here. If your roof is leaking, you're going to try to figure out what is causing the leak, right? You're not just going to stare at the leak and be like, wow, it's expanding. Wow, it's brilliant. Wow, right? You're going to obviously diagnose why it happened. And the other thing is, when we say things like having honor isn't just about men, right? It's because it's true. It's women having honor is good too. In the same way that you would never say being a man is about breathing oxygen. Well, no, the women also breathe oxygen. So why would you bring that up? It's an irrelevant point. In the exact same way.
Because
wait. Let me respond to that real quick.
There's unique masculine tropes.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's two things, right? So first of all, again, like I'll reiterate, because of the differences in social roles, there's going to be things that are emphasized more with some people than other people. We're not saying that on average, we're not saying that women can't have honor. But when we went around and we're talking about, our definition of a man, you said some like broad level things too. And then like, what does that even, couldn't that apply to women too? I suppose
I'll give you a good example.
I wanted to say one thing. I wanted to say one last thing.
Say one more thing, but then I got a good
example. And this is in somewhat disagreement with counterpoints, but I think it answers what you said when we're talking about diagnosing the problem. Well, I think the problem here is that part of the crisis of masculinity, when I'm talking about self-respect, is that we seem to base our self-perceived value on what women think of us, right? Counterpoint was saying not to rely on, we don't rely on external validation. That's not true. If a man is a virgin, we all make fun of him. If a man doesn't have a hot wife or a girlfriend, or a man is judged by how many women he can get, that is absolutely external validation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Before anyone else goes, I want to give you guys an example of the differences, how men and women, when it comes to honor and things like that. It's a very clear example that I think all of us could probably agree on, right? That if you are faced with a dangerous situation and someone is being threatening or something is being threatening, like the mountain lion example that Counterpoints there gave, right? If as a man, you do not step in front of the woman to protect her, I'm going to judge you. But as a woman, if you step behind your man, right, for her to protect, I won't think less of you at all. And I think most people would have that same judgment. If the man does not step up to protect, he is seen as lesser. If a woman does not step up to protect...
3-second interjection.
That's an example.
A woman's honor, I need to get some water. A woman's honor, for like historically and for broad swaths of time, has been not taking too much strange dick. That's literally been a woman's honor for a long time. Be right back.
Okay, I would disagree. I wouldn't be essentialize it that much. But I would just say the example that you gave, Wick, is an example of being a protector. That's not really an example of honor. Honor is far more broad than that.
But it's still a masculine trait.
Sure, it's still a masculine. Sure. Wait, hold on. So counterpoint is not here now. But when he was like, what's unique about honor? What's unique about masculinity? We're not like he seemed to have issue that we're having this discussion, but that's the whole point, right? These terms that we're using, such as honor, are so broad as to apply to both men and women. So in a discussion about masculinity, yes, I do think it's appropriate to really drill down and find out what is unique about masculine honor versus feminine honor. And to your point, Lactoid, you seem to be frustrated that we keep bringing up women and femininity. But like, look, we can't have a discussion about masculinity without defining it in opposition to femininity. So yes, in a discussion about masculinity, of course, there's going to be a discussion about femininity. That they are polar opposites. They're defined as like almost the opposites of each other. So yes, necessarily we're going to be talking about femininity.
I understand. And this is why
this
is why I've addressed it multiple times in the sense of like, again, like due to is anybody denying that like gender roles fulfill like some kind of utilitarian purpose in society, right? That there is a reason why that like especially when we're talking about setting up like a household or like a parental household, that it makes sense that like during the time in which the mother is vulnerable, that we prepare men to be able to step up and provide for her during that time period. Is that like that to me? That seems like a pretty
another woman do that, or a parent.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or another woman can do the same role. No,
because on average, this is like not the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, second of all,
it's not.
Stop!
No. I have to interrupt because you said
finish and then
real quick. You said you're talking about is this ideal? You said in an ideal situation, a man would support a woman through her labor process. And I'm saying that there's nothing to say that the man being there is ideal. You just need someone there that cares and supports. It could be a mother or another woman.
I would disagree with you. No, I disagree with you here. I disagrey because
I think
it has to be a culture thing too, because even in my even in my household with my foster children and my wife and me, how we handle with my daughter and stuff like that, like we both worked, you know what I'm saying? Like we were both pillars of that, but we did have different jobs and stuff that we fulfilled. It's okay to have a strong woman that fulfills the same role that you do, but there's things like I would always say, there's things that like with my foster children, my two little twin sisters, I'd be like, yo, go to your big sister Sabine because she knows more than I do in the subject. You know what I'm saying? She can help you better than me. Like these things are allowed inside of sorry, got a little nervous right there. Go ahead, who's Mark?
I want to ask Ian something real quick because this has come up multiple times. I just need to ask this: if every statement you say about men could apply, and any kind of like role we ascribe or anything like that could apply to women in some circumstances, and because it applies to women in some circumstances, that sort of invalidates the dichotomy or like the differentiation here. What's the point of even having like a concept of man? Why even have that?
Wow.
Because
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer it. You're welcome. I'll answer it. So it seems that in current society, man, the gender man and the roles associated with man are very closely associated with the biological aspect of being a male and reproducing. So yes, on average, you're getting households and families of a dad and a mom, but I'm just saying that you're making it sound like this is the ideal or it must be like this. And I disagree with that. I think two women or two men, or, if let's say you're formula feeding from lots of babies are formula fed from day one. If you're formula feeding, as long as you just have a community or a support system around that one parent, I don't see how a man can do anything more than a woman can do in an immediate labor. Especially I have a 2-month-old right now. I don't see her mom or a sister could fill the role that I've been filling.
Sure. So if you're gonna make the statement, which is true, that like in the vast majority of cases, like and as we should gear society towards because we're preparing people for this, and the vast majority of people are going to experience this way, which is going to be a mother and a father. So because that happens most of the time, then it is useful to have a differentiation here. And it is useful to have this characteristic of a father and have this this is the ideal that there's a 2-parent household. And do we have exceptions sometimes? Sure, we can have exceptions, but that doesn't invalidate the concept of man.
No, but I never invalidated the concept of man.
Great.
I'm just saying the thing you're bringing up, you brought up one specific example of, you said an ideal situation would be that a man and a woman parent a child, and I'm just saying it doesn't have to be like that.
Let me be clear. I'm not talking about like gay people. I'm talking specifically about like for the vast majority of people who are going to like be in straight monogamous relationships. The vast majority of people, it makes sense that when we're looking at the biological differences, to prepare people in different ways through gender roles to fill the needs of the child and to fill the needs of society generally.
Okay,
and generally speaking, for most straight relationships, when the mother is pregnant or nursing or just recovering for pregnancy, it makes sense to have a father there, or the vast majority of the time.
I think I see the disconnect. Maybe I can bridge this gap. Maybe I can kind of bring us kind of to some semblance of togetherness here, right? So what Lactoid seems to be talking about, right, is how society is now, right? Whereas he, and correct me if I'm wrong, seems to say, well, this is society now, but it doesn't have to be that way, and there's nothing inherent about man or woman that makes it have to be this way. And I think both of these things are correct, right? And I think,
can I just make can I follow up with you? I agree with you. I just want to add on to what you were saying. So very interestingly, okay.
Yes, once I actually finish what I'm saying,
go ahead.
Yes, you may. So I think at this juncture, right, when we do talk about these things, I think there is value in saying, well, regardless of how we want society to be one day, this is how it is now. This is when someone comes up to you, right? More than likely, they're going to expect X, Y, and Z. It may be right. It may be wrong. That doesn't matter. This is what the expectation is. That's my thought on it. Go ahead, Heem.
Okay, so what my point that I'm trying to get across is that it seems like Lactoid is very rigid on keeping this structure because you see some utility in it and you think that it's important to keep it the way it is. Whereas I think that this is a dynamic that changes over time. So again, I'm just going to use a personal anecdote. When I had a kid just now, a couple months ago, my mom and my partner's mom were shocked that we were like not asking them for help because back in the day, 3 generations ago, 2 generations ago, the immediate after birth would actually be done by the mothers of the mother, like the grandparents, the grandmothers would pitch in a lot, and the father would be more removed. Now, my mom was shocked at how involved I was trying to be with raising our baby at the beginning stages of her first few days. So even that has changed within a few decades, where now the expectation is that, men are going to be a little bit more involved than back in the day. They used to go right back to work.
Can I just add something onto that? So I think what Lactoid is talking about is he's not necessarily talking prescribing gender roles for the sake of it. I think Lactoid would say he was asking about the utility of the concept of man or woman. What is the purpose of it? What good does it bring to society, right? Now, Lactoid isn't saying that a man should be man for the sake of it, and we should have ideas of femininity and womanhood for the sake of it. What Lactoid, I think, would say was that in a society, we want the best outcomes for everyone, right? We want to have the ideal person for each role. And the utility of gender, of masculinity and femininity, is that it just so happens that men are more suited to the roles that we've described of being a provider, of being a protector.
Society pushes us towards it.
And more than that, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are better at it, but men seem to enjoy that more, and there's a utility in that. Just assigning these roles to those who are more capable or enjoy it more.
𝕵𝖔𝖎𝖙, question for you: do you think that is because of biology, or do you think that's because of society?
Well, so we're going to get into a discussion of nature versus nurture. Yes, I would say that there
are
are some.
Like a brief. You don't have to give me a dissertation.
It's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
Which one? Where does the gravity lie, though? Right? Like, is it equal, or does there seem to be much more weight in one of these areas than the other? And if so, which one?
The weight, I would say, is the social aspect of it. However, it all stems from like a kernel of truth in the biology. That's what I would say.
Yeah, the culture is informed by the biology. That's a critical point.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's being said, but this is the reason why in like egalitarian societies you still see like vast disparate choices and like professional outcomes and all that kind of stuff. So I've worked with plenty of competent women who were in the military. I worked with plenty of competent women who were in law enforcement, but there were just biological realities. Like even if they were like Chad CrossFit people, the Chad CrossFit female would still get their asses kicked by the Chad CrossFit male. So even if they could kick like 70% of men's asses, then that's cool, but they would still get their ass kicked by their male counterpart. And not just that, but even if that one person was better than 70% of men at the masculine role that they were trying to fulfill, the truth is that like there was one of those. right? There was one of those people, whereas there were dozens of like females who fit more stereotypical levels of like fitness and strength and all that kind of shit. And then there was shitloads of males who fulfilled like the stereotypes of like the archetypes of masculinity. So the thing is, like, we can always come up with exceptions to the rules for why like people can not necessarily fulfill the gender roles as we expect them to be, but there's going to be clusters of behavior around certain biological sets. And I think the reason why conservatives get frustrated with like people, not anybody here necessarily, but people who want to like abolish the category, is because we think, or at least I think, that even if you abolish the category, you would still have disproportionately people with penises collected around certain levels of behavior, and you would have people with uteruses collected around certain levels of behavior. And just because there's exceptions doesn't mean that these categories aren't relatively predictive of reality.
Darius, go
That's what
ahead.
But what purpose do they serve?
Well,
just wanna say
Darius, go ahead.
I just want to say
To
something
give
really
you an
quick.
ideal to strive for.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to say something really quickly though. We can get into the archetypical maleness and archetypical femaleness in a few. I just want to say something about you said something. You was in the military. I was too. I was in the army. I'll say this: that if I'm not mistaken, there's not a single rule that says that women cannot play in the NFL or in the NBA. They just are not fucking good enough. They just are not good enough, and that is okay.
Okay.
Fair. I don't know how that relates to
Okay.
masculinity,
Well, hold
but
on. What is-
Yeah, my
Can
man.
I answer Neem's question real quick? So he asked, so what do these social categories serve?
Yeah, I
And
don't
so for me-
disagree that like with everything you said, I agree, but I guess that's
I
Yeah,
think they give you archetypes to strive for. I think when you're a child and you're trying to become yourself, like we often tell kids, be yourself, but kids don't know what the fuck they are. So how do you be yourself? You don't be yourself, you become yourself.
But
And
that's
the way
part
that
of the
you-
don't you
journey,
think
man. You
the
discover that over the
way
time as
you-
being a boy.
Yes, and the way you become yourself is by trying on these archetypical like social roles and then seeing what fits and doesn't fit.
But why not try everything then?
But that you
Because
do.
I don't want to
That's
smoke dick.
Yeah. So,
No,
wait.
I mean,
There's
there's limits to that.
Stop. Okay, so let me jump in a little bit because I have opinions on this, right? Counterpoints. I think you're absolutely right. We strive to fulfill models, right? We strive to emulate behaviors that we see in those around us on media. That's why representation matters. That's why it's important to have positive role models that you can identify with. These are all important because that's how humans work. We identify, emulate, and imitate the behaviors that we see. We do this even as adults, right? Look at how many people try to emulate what Destiny does, right? Because it's successful. They, want to be like him, and so they emulate his behavior, right? Or Vosh or these other things. This is just how humans work. So what I would say is the value, right? Or why we need these roles, or why these roles are always going to be with us, is because as pattern recognizing creatures, we need patterns to recognize. Now we can adjust them, and I think we should, because I think there's a lot of bad models that we've because traditional that have, for various reasons, traditionally been like set up as I guess I'll just use the words toxic masculinity, right? I think there's a lot of those traits that have kind of crept into the models that people look towards. But one of the side effects of us having a conversation about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, and if gender even matters, is that there's a vast swath of young men who have no models to look for, or is very unsure what models to look for. So instead of going to the traditional stuff, they've gone to dark roads. They find Andrew Tate, they model him, because these are the only people that are offering these, that they say. Go ahead. Why am I wrong?
Okay, I severely disagree with this. Okay, and this is why I think the red pill movement will never it'll never really go away, because these guys are, what they're advertising is basically what every 16 to 18-year-old kid loves. They wish they could drive fast cars and fuck hot girls. You're never going to convince a 16 to 18-year-old that being with one girl for 10 years and having the best time and traveling the world together and having a beautiful relationship where you grow together as two people and then you have a child, that does not appeal to a 16 to 18-year-old the same way that fucking lots of girls does. That will never appeal unless you guys have a suggestion. I don't think having even Counterpoints is a great male role model. I talk about male issues all the time, but because we're talking about it from a mature perspective and not a meme like Andrew Tate smoking cigars and smoking a hookah at the same time, then it'll never appeal to young kids.
I disagree.
I think it's a two-part thing, though. You got to have a whole group of like it goes back to having that friend group, right? Because not all, like, I think we all understand this. When you grow up, at least back before the internet was a thing, when I grew up, there was this like a pecking order in your social group, right? There was the funny guy, there was the guy that got girls and stuff like that, and y'all all together came together and made Voltron up in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, and bring the girls to you and all this stuff and whatnot. And like, where to the point of like, we got to like start rebuilding that and getting that back in together, and then we could start tackling the point that you were bringing up, where you were countering with what.
Look, here, just real quick, Connor, I'll let you go in a second, right? I promise. But here's the problem, right? I think that like this idea that we can never compete with the Andrew Tates of the world is very self-defeating. I don't think it's true. I think we can. The
not
problem
because our ideas are wrong, not because our ideas
No,
are
I
wrong,
understand.
just because it doesn't have the appeal.
But I think that this appeal is somewhat the result of two things. One, the manufactured kind of elements of the before times, right? Where fast cars, loose women, that was the model, right? That is no longer the model, because we are having a not just a national conversation, I would say, but a cultural conversation about what a man even is anymore. I think that is very confusing to young men. They don't know what they're supposed to be, and so they turn to people who look like they know.
And yes,
Okay,
it's a reaction.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the thing, is I agree with Heem that when you're 17 and you get your first girlfriend, no matter how beautiful or cool she is or whatever, you're always going to be looking around, because you're going to be like, what are the experiences of the world that I'm missing out on because I'm committed to a single person? So there's always the male temptation for, exploration and temptation and all that kind of stuff. But what I think that I was raised, particularly by my parents, unsuccessfully, with a social pressure to be a better person, where if I commit to somebody, then I have to have a monogamous relationship, no cheating, no lying, no this, no that, all this kind of shit. And so I have absolutely no problem. As a matter of fact, I think part of the problem in the thousands when I was coming up was we had the inverse of that culture outside of the household. It basically said women are experiences. Fuck as many women as you can. Money, money and status is the most important thing that you can have, or be funny. But get money and status, etc. I could go down the laundry list of tropes, but the tropes outside of the religious, conservative, family-oriented structure, trying to force people to not be materialist, worshiping, consumer, boomer, degenerate fucks. The culture outside of the conservative household was so toxic and so pervasive that it basically reinforces that behavior. So I think that it's okay to give people that pressure to be better, to be monogamous, to tell the truth, to do etc., and then expect them to fail that model. And it's okay to fail that model.
Can I give my hot take
real quick? Who's Mark? To go with what he like. With the positive role models and stuff like that, like, we're forgetting like people did gravitate to, like, Uncle Phil and stuff like that. Like the Andrew Tates and the Fresh and Fits don't grab everybody's eyes, but there isn't anybody that's iconic.
Medium, right?
No,
that was like, it was a scripted show, right? It's like, I don't know.
Who's the last straight heterosexual dad on TV like that of, besides Modern Family, which still features a gay couple as a part of the extended family? Who's the last boring straight monogamous family that you can think of?
I was just about to look that up. I ain't even gonna lie. Counterpoint.
I just watched.
Phil was the last one I can think of.
I just watched what's it called? White Lotus on HBO. There was a dad's 3 generations of men traveling to Italy to see their old country and whatever. I don't know. There is examples, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think
not a continuous thing.
A key thing, I think, if we're going to be like talking about tackling Andrew Tate and how he appeals to young men, I think a key thing is that one of the things that Andrew Tate does and other red pillars do is they are they admit anyway, at least ostensibly, they are proud to be men. They talk about being a man. They talk about masculinity. They address it, right? So we can talk about Dwayne the Rock Johnson and other kind of like other like blue pill ideas of like good ideals of masculinity, but they don't talk about being a man. When you're a 16 or 17-year-old kid, right? It's like kind of beyond you to connect the dots. Like, oh, he's fulfilling the normal roles of like the positive roles of masculinity, but he doesn't talk about being a man. Like, you need someone explicitly. No, you
never
do.
did
When you're
back
16,
in the day.
when you're 15, they did talk about masculinity. When you're 15 and 16, you need the clear message: I am a man. I'm proud of being masculine, and here's how you should do it. So, like, the problem is, I think
Uncle Phil taught
masculinity.
lessons.
The problem is,
wasn't like I was a man. Though.
Let Uzi finish. Let Uzmark finish. Go ahead.
Masculinity has almost become like a pejorative. People don't like the word masculinity. It's become like within society, and there's like I've got like there's a really interesting Pew research about this that the whole concept of masculinity is being seen as negative. That's why I think a lot of like good role models are shying away of not actually like saying proudly, "I am a man," kind of thing.
Why is it negative? Why is it seen negative? That's like the next question you ask, right?
Patriarchy.
Oh, sure.
No, because Lacto basically said, hold on. Lacto basically said what I was going to bring up next. Why is it negative? I think one of the reasons as to why we have these negative concepts of masculinity in its modern iterations is because, number one, third and fourth wave feminism saying, well, why can't women do these things? Well, I mean, right now, we're not talking about women. We're talking about men. We're talking about that XY chromosome, bitches. And number two, I do get what Uzma brings up Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate, for all of his faults, and he has a lot of them, he has a lot of faults. Like Wick said, he's seen as a role model for 15, 16-year-old young men who want to be masculine, right? So we have to figure out how to tackle this issue specifically, right? How do we sell positive masculinity to young men?
I got you.
Two, just real quick, I got to make money. 2 super chats have come through. One was a while ago. $5 from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 Jr. For the panel, give us at least one controversial take, either concrete or speculative, you hold regarding women in general. We'll do that later, but we will get to that. More pertinent.
Spicy.
$10 from Fondue. Why are we setting the standard of a man being set by 16 to 18-year-olds? When a guy in our friend group was going through multiple women, we had an intervention. Counterpoints. Go ahead.
Why are we setting it off of 16 to 18-year-old expectations? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think that like men, 30-year-old to 40-year-old men who have already been there, done that, done the wild shit, had fun, all that kind of stuff. I think it's important for them to step down to 16 to 18-year-olds and say, hey, listen, man, like, this is what you're experiencing. This is what you're going through. I went through something similar. It might not be identical, but this is what you can expect. Here's what you're going to fuck up. And if you're going to fuck up, go ahead and fuck up. But I'm just giving you a heads up about what's coming down the road if you go down this path. That would be what I think is required as a part of our society. And then as far as giving young men a blueprint, I have a wildly ascientific model that I think is good, though, which is basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's 5 categories. It's often drawn as a pyramid. The bottom is physiological. The next one is security. The next one is social. The next one is ego. The next one is self-actualization. And I think that everyone should be aware of the psychological concept, and they should view it as a pyramid that they individually have to climb. So if your physiological needs are not being met, you're not eating the right food, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not doing enough, et cetera, you have to take that out first. You got to figure out a way to get like a balanced life. Same thing with security. If you're not strong enough, if you don't know how to use a firearm, if you don't feel secure physically in your world, if you don't have enough money in order to pay your bills, etc., that's got to be your next concern. Socially, do you have rich social life? Ego, what do you want to achieve in this world before you die? That is something that I think that every young person should be asked. And then finally, self-actualization. While you're proceeding through life as a teenager, as a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old, what is the best version of yourself, and how do you strive towards that ideal? And I think that if you boiled that down into a course and gave it to young people, they would be a lot better of human beings than I was when I was a teenager.
I wonder if there's not, because Fondue's question made me think, right? I wonder if there's not kind of a side issue that's affecting us in this way, and that we just don't respect the elderly anymore. We don't.
True.
And in fact, we think like, oh, old people, they don't know what they're talking about, and they should step aside. It's the youth's turn to rise up and do all these things. All these.
I'm 38. I'm called a boomer.
Yeah, I know. All the ideas of the past are sins. They're sins, and we must move past them. Old people, we don't want you anymore, and we're not going to listen to you. I wonder if that's playing an effect on this. And so people like Tate and people like these other Fresh and Fit guys that will appeal to the childhood version, the kids version of what a man's is, right, have really taken hold in a way they wouldn't otherwise if we still respected more the olders.
Real
Go
quick,
ahead.
I think we forgot a lesson in this whole thing. Like when I was younger, my parents was like, "You're gonna grow up and you're gonna learn." And then I grew the fuck up, and I was like, "Holy shit, my parents were right." I think it's like something to be said when you're younger, that where you're going to like naturally rebel, and nobody can tell you shit. Like I have a little brother and kids and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? I gotta yell at them and be like, "Hey, if you do this, you're gonna fuck up. This is gonna suck, dog." But they're gonna do it because you still gotta learn the fucking lesson. You know what I'm saying? Like you still have that process. So yeah, I just think even if you're the old, you have to grow into that. I think it's just a part of the process, right?
Go ahead, Heem.
Okay, a couple of things. So a while ago, Connor brought up a really good point about how people are raised, right? You said you were raised a certain way, and I think that is actually a very important part. A big part of the whole incel uprising, whatever, is because I think not just boys, but kids in general are not socialized that well, especially with social media, and they're like given an iPad from such a young age. They grow up with like social anxieties and whatnot that they never really grow out of. And a big part of being like a successful man in the dating world is knowing how to just talk to regular people, women, men, having a conversation that you're not always trying to fuck, right? Like, and I always recommend this for men, young men, if anyone's listening. A great way to work on this is to get a job, part-time job when you're young at a restaurant or a bar. At a restaurant or a bar, you are forced to talk to beautiful women you work with in a non-flirtatious, non-fucking way. Hey, did you clean up the table 5? Hey, did you talk to that customer? Hey, da, da, da. And over time, part of it is learning to treat beautiful women as just regular people and listen and respond, right? And I think these are parts of growing up that is very much left behind nowadays. And then another thing was that we were saying, why are we trying to appeal to the needs or the, I guess, the vision that 16 to 18-year-old men have, as in terms of what kind of male role model content we want to make. The reason is because I think those are the people who are looking for this. In my eyes, and again, I could be wrong, who are the category of people who are looking for male dating, male problems content? Two types of people. One is going to be 16 to 18-year-old younger kids, and the other is going to be like divorcees that got their hearts broken by women, and they're looking to hate women. So when they're hearing these guys say, fuck these women, let's fuck, da, 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 it's exactly what they're looking for. So again, I'm going to go back and say, we will never be able to appeal to this community of people who these are their needs with just like sensical advice.
I think you're underestimating the amount of 20 to 30-year-old men who are lost and do not feel that they have.
But how are you going to convince them? No, I agree, they are lost. But I'm just saying their vision of what success looks like is much more palatable than being internally happy and content and not looking for fame or not looking for money and being able to enjoy a camping trip with the friends.
We got to synthesize these. We got to synthesize. I think you can. I think you can synthesize how having, as Darius would put it, an internal locus of control leads to these external outcomes that they desire, right? If you want success in these measurable ways,
Jordan Peterson did.
Such as wealth, such as women, all these other things that you want, success, fame, etc. These come from being these foundational things, such as honorable, a protector, being reliable, being faithful, and these things will give you the success that is more permanent than the ones that are offered by the snake oil.
You are 100% right, but do you think that
I absolutely think we can do it?
Jordan,
I think
hold on.
people really
Yes,
think
Jordan
hold on,
Peterson
but-
did this. Jordan Peterson literally had
So-
content like this, and he was one of the most popular people. And then you had his school of thought, which is take more
Thank you,
responsibility, be
Johnny,
a better
for
person.
the raid. 28 Wickers in chat. Hit
Yeah.
follow button. Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
and then you had a response like one narrative, which is like, you know, be responsible. And he was attacked, and he was lumped in with like the other people who are basically saying like, well, no, this is what it's like to be a man. Like a lot of this is a reaction to what 𝕼𝖎 said about how
I think
you know,
it's-
even calling yours like even
And I-
calling
I
people are
think this is a-
ashamed to be masculine now. People are
I think
ashamed
this
to
is
be a man.
totally the wrong lesson to be teaching, right? Because like, yeah, success is great and all this, but it's the pursuit of happiness, right? You can find a homeless couple out on the street, guy and a woman
agree,
and a
yeah.
man, and they're content with their fucking lives and doing whatever they have, and he has his girl, and you have my ex-wife wasn't even in the top 20 of like the hottest girls I have been with, but she made, and we were married for 10 years and
Oh,
made
this
me
is a-
at, you know
I'm
what
sure
I'm
she'd
saying?
love to hear
This is
that.
public. This is public, by the way.
Yeah,
This
you
is
know
part
the
of the
stream is
problem,
like
man.
people can
Like
hear
why
this,
why
right?
why is
Like,
it always chasing the hot girl? Why not just find somebody?
You're
you can
okay. No, 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 no,
Because no
dude.
one wants to listen to that,
Yeah,
dude.
no one's gonna say, "Hey, yeah."
But
Don't
isn't
even
that the
worry about
definition
hot.
of
No, we want
masculinity,
hot
right?
women. Like
No,
men want hot
wait,
women, and that's okay.
But
Okay,
hold
so-
on, let's go down this hypothetical, right? So let's just say you got a half attractive girl, right? Somebody is going to try to step to you and violate you one day, or try to insult your girl. That's even more of a statement where you have to stand up and be a man and defend your woman's honor. It puts you in those situations
That's
where
toxic
even more
masculinity, man.
so.
No, I wanted to say like for Jordan C. Peterson like specifically, I recall, maybe I'm misremembering, but I recall when he was pushing these ideas and when he was like pretending to be like, or I guess acting as a role model for men, a lot of the criticism was sort of, you know, making fun of him, like, oh, all these no dad having kids, like all gravitating towards this red pill guy, right? And they were criticizing him and shit. Like, was the response to Jordan Peterson justified in any way? Like when he
Hell no.
when he
And-
was doing the good.
Okay, let me back up 𝕵𝖎 before you
Who
guys
said
respond.
doing the good,
So
𝕵𝖎?
𝕼𝖎,
Yeah.
this was a point that I wrote down probably 20 minutes ago, but we just moved on from it. I can't agree that there isn't a crisis of masculinity when you're like, there's two depressed people. The women is depressed at a rate of like, on a scale of 0 to 100 on how good they feel, they're at a 35, and the man is at a 36. So technically, aren't men doing better? Like, nah. Like, I don't think that way at all. And also, Jordan Peterson was a cultural lightning rod for, I don't know, like a half decade to a decade. And I do get that, like, him being, like, anti-trans, and now he hasn't eaten a broccoli in, like, 10 years, so he, like, you know, tweets off fucking, like, you know, Chinese jerk-off fetish porn on his fucking main Twitter account and shit. Like, I get, there's plenty of criticisms of the guy. But at the same time, like, I don't think that you can say there isn't a crisis of masculinity when 90% of his advice is, like, be responsible, tell the truth, be loyal to your partner, be culturally monogamous. Like the whole like culturally enforced monogamy or whatever was basically like the example that he used was a father. If his son comes to him bragging about how he cheated on his wife, his dad doesn't go, "Oh yeah, that's really cool, son. High five on banging the hot stripper." He goes, "What the fuck is wrong with
that.
you?"
Quick, can I
would disagree with that.
Plenty of fucking people. That's
No.
Yes, the
Well,
entire
yeah,
mainstream
yeah.
feminist movement hated him
Yeah.
for saying this.
Okay,
shit.
I have to
stop.
respond here. I
They did,
have to
wait.
respond.
Stop. You do, but who would be mad at that? I lost friends because I said monogamy is better than polygamy. I lost friends from it.
Hell yeah. I lost followers and patrons for it.
Wait,
Anyway, Heem, go ahead.
polygamy, first of all, polygamy and cheating on your spouse are two different things. Okay, but I'm just going to leave that aside. Going back to the Jordan Peterson thing. Now, it's been a while since I've brushed up on my 2015 Jordan Peterson videos, but from what I recall, he always had this like anti-feminism spin. And
Yeah.
no one ever
And-
really, wait one sec, let me finish. And no one ever really had an issue with his self-help, clean your room. No one has an issue with that. It's when he stepped out of his self-help zone that people started to
Yes.
take issue. When he started weighing in on women in the workplace. Wait, you're shaking your head, but that was one of the biggest things was when he was commenting on how women are in the workplace and their women gaze is
Trans
attracting
issues
men.
as well.
He was always shat on. He was always
No.
shat on.
So no, the reason hold on. This point was brought up. I want to just quickly address this. So when he got a lot of shit, right? But like the vast majority of the time, like Counterpoint said, 90% of the time he's saying good things. But oftentimes
I don't
it would
think
be
it's 90%
oftentimes it would be in response to, like, especially back in 2016, 2015, around that time, it was in response to people talking shit about men, right? It was in response to a denigration of masculinity. And the response was, well, actually, no, don't feel ashamed of being men. Like, this is what it means to be a man. You're not a terrible person. You don't have to be a terrible person. And are we really surprised that this resonated with a whole bunch of young men?
It's not just that, though. The problem was that he took it the step further and would shit on women for it. That's absolutely not. You're telling me that if his content was just him saying no, men aren't all that bad.
No. He was just go watch the Kathy Newman interview. Okay,
yes.
It's literally just 10 minutes of her being like, "So you're like an evil bigot who thinks that we should organize our society around lobsters, right?"
But has he said shit like that before? Is the question.
No!
We never. Let me get in here really quick.
No. This is the perfect example.
I'm going to spend all week watching Jordan Peterson videos. Now I'm getting cheese.
One example I can think of specifically is he was shit on for making the comment that a lot of times women will wear makeup and wear blush and other forms of thing in order to appear more sexually appealing.
Let me try to
Which is
short
true.
No, it's not.
I have an interjection. Women wearing makeup isn't to make them more sexually attractive.
Can I respond or not?
Go ahead.
Let's not talk about
Okay,
women.
the reason
It's even used for men to make them more sexy.
Stop, Heem, go ahead. I will start muting people. I swear to God.
Women have to wear makeup in the workplace because it's a societally accepted thing that women wear makeup. If a woman doesn't wear makeup, she's told, "Oh, you look sick. Is everything okay? Oh, did you not get any sleep last night?" So it's not just purely because she's trying to look sexy. She also is. It's like an etiquette. He's saying isn't looking sexy.
It is because if this.
I need a minute. Okay. So number one, I'm gonna articulate this very clearly to you, and I have the perfect example, and it's the lobster shit. You're like, well, didn't he say wild shit about fucking lobsters? And it's like, no. What he said was, yes. Let me expand on it. Okay. What he was saying is that there are leftists who are both socially progressive and or communist. And they do not believe in hierarchy. They believe in flattening as many hierarchies as possible. And what he was saying is that there are a lot of natural hierarchies within the world that are you cannot deny them. They are unignorable. And as a result, like lobsters are like, I don't know, fucking 3 billion years old or some shit. They're old as fuck. They're like one of the oldest living fucking creatures that is more complex than a tree. And in the lobster, there's a very fundamental like brain mechanism that reinforces certain behavior of like dominance and hierarchy and tribalism and all that kind of shit. And then there's negative, hold on, I'm not done yet. There are negative fucking reinforcement factors where if they lose a territorial battle or if they don't get access to females or whatever the fuck, they have a negative brain reinforcement. So what he's saying is it's fucking childish as a social progressive or as a leftist to think that you can override 1.3 billion years of fucking social evolution. That was the point.
Okay. The point of the panel, right, isn't lobsters. Okay, I want to kind of bring us back a little bit. I understand. But I have a question for Heem real quick. I see your hand. Don't worry about it. But you may not think that Jordan Peterson did it right, and that's fine. This isn't a panel about Jordan Peterson. But do you not think that modern society and culturally, men are denigrated to a great extent? Do you not feel that they are under attack, or would you disagree with that?
Okay, so I will acknowledge that some parts of masculinity are definitely under attack. And I guess if you were a man, I wouldn't blame you if you felt victimized. But going back just one more time, I have to reiterate, I forgot this point, is the people who are in relationships successfully already, they're not looking for men's type of content. They're not looking for that. So the appeal is by saying feminism is the root of the problems, get jacked and get lots of money and fuck lots of girls. This will always appeal. And I don't know, maybe I'm just very small-minded in that.
Can I say something to that?
You may, but real quick, relates. Again, this idea that only single men are looking for help on their masculinity is just false. There's a lot of men who are married, who are in relationships and otherwise happy that just feel isolated because their family, their spouse, their
they're
kids,
Andrew Tate fans.
That's all they have. I don't know if they're Andrew Tate fans or not, but they're absolutely looking for. They're looking for something they cannot find.
They're looking for community. Yeah, I agree. But
and they cannot find it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Men are lacking communities.
𝕵𝖎𝖎, go ahead.
Yeah, there's far more to a discussion about masculinity than just like how to get a chick, right? So this is going to
True.
address counterpoints what he was talking about, the crisis of masculinity. And the reason why I dislike that term is because most often you'll use that term used by feminists, by academics, as a reason and a springboard to actually deconstruct and demolish masculinity. They're saying, oh, masculinity is going through a crisis, therefore we need to like change it. We need to change what masculinity is. It's a way to deconstruct it. That's the reason they use it. The reason why I say I'm bullish on masculinity is because in actual fact, men, for the most part, are doing okay. They identify as being masculine. They're fairly happy with their lives. Now, the reason it relates again to what we're talking about, addressing masculinity in a non-negative way. And the reason I think that's so important is because there are issues with masculinity, right? The two most predominant, I would say, would actually be not seeking out mental health support when needed, which leads to a lot of these amounts of suicide. And number two, the massive one that we haven't addressed on this podcast so far is declining education rates among men. These are two huge things that's affecting men and masculinity that we need to address. And I think to remove the negative connotation from masculinity is integral to addressing these two issues, so we can actually find strategies that will help men in a masculine way and help them in those two regards.
And this is a question to the panel. Is being educated no longer seen as a masculine trait?
A very masculine trait.
I
don't
think
think it
it's
ever
one of
was.
the I think that's one of the highest ones you can have.
Well, a few
Like
people
you
said
need
that
you need
never was.
scholars.
I'm getting
No,
mixed
you need
answers
scholars
here.
just with big, strong guys. You know what I'm saying? Just as much so.
I don't even think,
Just
I
as
want
much
to say
so.
really quickly though. I don't even think it's just educated. I think high intelligence is one of the most masculine traits.
No,
Wow.
I'm separating these things. We're not talking about
But then still,
intelligence here.
yes.
We're talking about being educated.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, I completely disagree with this notion. I'm about to finish my PhD this year, and in the two conferences I've gone to, the keynote speakers were young women in their mid to late 30s who have accomplished incredible things on a worldwide level in terms of research that were mind-blowing. I think it's silly to think that being educated is a masculine trait. That's ridiculous.
No, I said I think it's a part of it though.
Oh.
Like, right?
I disagree.
Okay,
No, it
again,
doesn't
once
have to be a
again,
part
just
of it.
because
It's-
a trait is
it's-
masculine does
He's
not
not,
also
he's
mean
not
it's
trying
also
to gender
feminine.
it. He's trying to
Okay.
say whether or not is it attractive to fucking masculine people. Is this something that people put into their archetypical masculinity as something to strive for? And so I would say that there is a class of men who do view education not for education's sake. I don't think most men like sitting in a fucking classroom reading shit and then writing shit and being judged on their ability to write. They view it as a vehicle for status. That's what it is. And the education.
And some men value blue collar.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. So, firstly, the people who use it as a vehicle for status, good for them. Very happy that they're intelligent enough to do that. But two, the main thing is masculinity is whether or not you're able to provide. So if you're a younger man and you can get a blue collar job, you can be a drywaller or a painter or a fucking plumber or whatever. As long as the woman doesn't judge you for having like dirt in your nails or whatever, then that is a great way to make a dickload of money, find a based fucking wife, and probably put your kids to be whatever the fuck they want because you're going to be getting paid.
I would
money.
generally
Can I
say
say something
most
real
of
quick
you guys in here would be considered from Lactoid counterpoints. A lot of y'all, you two Adaris, would be considered brainy and witty, right? And that shows right here because you have a confidence behind how your points and how you talk and stuff like that. And that is the masculine trait in that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You wouldn't be here talking, you know what I'm saying, if it wasn't masculine, right?
Adarius, you
And with these a lot of these brainy points, right?
Adarius, you wanted to say
There's a
something?
different. I'm a meathead. I'm a dude, bro.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different. It's different.
So I
Adarius,
just
go
want
ahead.
to say, I want to say, to respond to him here, something can be a masculine trait without necessarily. Can something be a masculine trait and be a feminine trait?
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't understand when Wick asked, "Is being educated considered a masculine trait?" And you started talking about how women were doing.
Well, what's masculine about it?
Well, that's a good question because if like
Reading is masculine.
If you look at any kind of advert or any kind of cultural depiction of a man's man, they're all rugged, right? They usually out in the dirt, right, digging holes and hunting and doing these things. Like even James Bond isn't he's not a scholarly, educated type, he's
enough about
well-
fake. Enough about fake characters on Marvel and shit.
These
Can we
And the
matter.
mention
focus on-
was-
I wanna know-
No, wait.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not just Marvel and shit. It's in commercials. These like advertisers pay fucking good money to try to appeal to different people and to like if
I
you want
just
to be a
want to know what
man,
makes
buy our
education
truck or
masculine.
buy our jeans, right?
There are numerous reasons why education could be construed as being masculine. The competitive
I
element.
don't
the
think
fact
it is
that women
anymore.
weren't allowed to read and stuff for a
No,
long
I don't
time.
think.
They were
No,
held
no,
back.
no, no.
Stop!
You can say-
You guys aren't letting me finish my point. I don't think it is anymore. I think it should be. I think you're exactly right. It no longer is considered a masculine trait, but it was back in the day, and I think
agree,
it
it was,
should
yeah.
be.
I think we're
It should
conflating-
be in the
And-
future, but it's not anymore. And Uzmar,
The reason,
Wait, can I
yeah,
say-
the reason.
Wick,
Wait,
wait,
let,
I wanna
let me
know
say
why-
something.
Heem, ask your question to
sorry.
me.
Why, Wick? Why do you think that it should be in the future? You were
Because
just
there
saying?
are
I'm
very
curious.
good outcomes to people being educated, right? To going through the education system, becoming accredited, learning all these things. There are good outcomes associated with that, having a college degree and things like that. And
I agree.
think
Yeah,
that
but
we
why is that
absolutely-
masculine?
It should be masculine.
There's a more pernicious issue at play here, rather than just education not being considered masculine. I think the reason why men are not achieving the same levels of education as women do is because the way we structure our classes. I'm a classroom teacher. With the way we structure our teaching pedagogy, essentially, is that we focus it on female ways of learning. That's the real issue here. Is that we don't have a discussion, and we should. Right, the academics, the pedagogy experts should be having a discussion about how can we best target the learning styles that men seem to perform best at. That's the issue, and that's why I keep on talking about we need to be able to talk and address masculinity in a non-pejorative way. That's the real issue.
Can I respond to it? Okay, I agree that classrooms need to be reworked and the education system is a bit outdated, but I don't think that it's more geared.
It's not
towards
outdated.
Women.
It is. It's more geared towards women.
Okay,
I'm telling you.
But this is the same education system that was made by men for men for hundreds.
No, you don't think
years.
you don't think that education has gone through like an extreme evolution in how we teach?
It depends.
We
which
went from
I
rote
don't know.
learning. It's a whole field. This is.
I'm in STEM. I'm in STEM. STEM hasn't changed. STEM has not changed.
No. The teaching styles have. This is the pedagogy is a whole field unto itself about how we actually best deliver content material. It's a whole field unto itself, and it has evolved just like any other, right? If you were to look, we went from rote learning. Now we have more like collaborative, task-based discovery tasks. We have there's a bunch of academics associated with this. Is something that's been discussed like.
I just don't know how widely implemented these new. I agree that they're being explored, but I don't think that I think rote memorization for math, let's say, is still the number one way to teach math worldwide.
No.
Worldwide, you're not even going to agree?
Any classroom teacher will tell you that no, rote learning has been demonized to the fucking ground, dude.
In the world or in North America?
No, in America.
I'm talking about in the West.
Real quick, Uzmark, in the West, you're correct, but China still does drill and kill all the time.
Yeah,
and they're better.
And I'm
for
from
it.
Iran.
And I wonder if we were talking about the education rates in China and Korea, I wonder if women are performing better than men in those areas.
I have no idea.
What I'm saying is perhaps men do or just more naturally attuned to different learning styles. Maybe if we're talking about rote learning, men learn best in a disciplinarian classroom where they're told, no, you're not allowed to be fucking boisterous. Sit down and do the fucking work. Maybe that's what men that's what appeals to men. But the thing is, in the West, we've gone in this more collaborative, discovery learning direction that's more suited to women. That's the issue.
I think
I'm not saying necessarily that rote learning is best for men. I'm just saying
$5 from Fondue to ask. Top right. Should men as a concept exist, and what does that look like to you specifically? That's you.
Am I top right?
Yeah, you are top right.
Oh, okay. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Should men as a concept exist, and what does that look like to you specifically?
Yeah, I mean, should it exist? I think I don't really have this should or shouldn't. I think it'll develop as whatever is most convenient. It seems to be in society now, up until now, man and woman has served a purpose. If it stops serving a purpose because these things start to overlap, you'll start to see less and less people identify strictly as man. You might get more non-binary identifications as maybe the roles blend. But what does it mean for me? Listen, I think I'm probably still, I grew up in an era, and I'm Middle Eastern. I came from a family where my dad said, don't cry, and so I have that instilled within me, and I try to acknowledge, my upbringing, but I think I'm a pretty good role model. I take care of my kid. I have an amazing partner. I'm a good partner.
Reason I invited you onto the panel, but go ahead.
I try to be a good person. I think above all else, for me, it's being a good person, and everything else kind of falls how it will. Just be a good person, and you'll be all right.
Fact. I think we're conflating wisdom and intelligence, where wisdom, you know, could be a masculine trait, right? I think intelligence lies more on more being the definitive masculine trait, which women can have too. But like, you know, throughout the history, like
Okay.
there's always men have been looked at as like the wise person to go, you know, get information from. We forget, we discount coaches and stuff like that. People that have always like taught lessons and stuff to help young men proceed through life. You know what I'm saying?
I have a bit of a follow-up question for him then, right?
Oh.
Because you mentioned you wanted to be a good person. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that being a good person differs if you're a man, and in what ways, right? Like, is there something that men specifically need to be a good to do or not to do to be a good person that is different from women?
No, I think maybe that's where maybe I disagree with some of the people on this panel. I think that being a good person in general is probably 95+% of being a good person overlaps between
if you were on
every
a ship
person.
on the Titanic and it was sinking, would you consider it right to be your duty to stay off the lifeboat so that your family members, your women and your children can have a spot? Or
I would do that, but in the same way, I would expect my mom to do that for me if she was in that position.
If your mom was on the Titanic, you would expect her to let you on the lifeboat instead of her?
I would think that because of the way I was raised by two very rational and logical parents, that she would automatically make that kind of sacrifice because I'm her kid and she's much older. She's lived a full life.
Mom, if you're listening, you can have my spot on the lifeboat. Mom, you can have my spot on the.
I love you.
Yeah, you can have my spot on the lifeboat.
Listen, my dad passed away last year. Maybe she wants to see him.
And maybe this is sexist. I don't know. Maybe it is. But I would absolutely judge a man who does not give up his spot for women and children. Right? I would absolutely judge that man.
Would you do it for a stranger?
Would you any woman?
Would you do it for a stranger?
Yes, I think that part of sacrifice.
No, I wouldn't do it for a stranger. I wouldn't do it for a stranger.
Does that make me less of a man now?
If you do not give up your space for a child, even a strange child, yes.
No, maybe child. You can make what do you call it? Utilitarian. They're younger.
It's not
they
about
have more life.
in this.
No, I'm saying compare it. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I would weigh it, and I would say let the child live. But let's say it's a woman that's the same age as you. That's a stranger. You would still sacrifice yourself?
I would like to think I would. I would.
You
like
wouldn't.
To think so.
Nah, please. None of you guys are. Nah, stop.
I wouldn't.
I've never been in that situation, to be honest. I've never been in that situation, so I can't know for sure. But I would like to think that if I was in a situation,
it's a fantasy,
and I saw any stranger, right? Any stranger, man or woman, right? And I would give up my spot for them.
Do you have kids, Wick?
No, but I have nephews and
maybe that's why. If you had kids, like I'm not going to deprive my kids of a father for some random chick.
Possible. That's possible, right? There are variables that are in play, right? But again, if I see someone who is younger than me, or weaker than me, or less able than me, or I perceive as less able than me, I will. And like I said, this might be a.
What about an 85-year-old? You're gonna do the same thing?
That's my question.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know. I would like to
you're
think
a much
I would.
Listen, and I would say you're a better person.
I don't know. I don't know though.
You're not a better man than I am.
Black man talk. None of y'all are being good people right now.
He has to elbow his way in, just like the rest of us. Darius, go ahead.
Hold on, no one asked my question, but especially to you, Heem. Do you not believe that there are biological differences between males and females, or people who are ascribed male at birth and people who are ascribed female at birth?
No, of course I do. I 100% do.
Okay, so do you think that we stratify our gender roles around these biological and innate differences?
No, I don't think. I think the way. Wait, let me expand. So, for example, traditionally, yes, men used to have to do the physical labor because they were much stronger and whatnot. But now there's service jobs. There's all kinds of jobs where you don't necessarily need to be doing heavy lifting. We have machinery that has replaced a lot of the back-breaking work that men used to do.
What about the mental differences? Is like.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I don't know if that's where I'm a little bit shadier, and I'm glad you brought that up, 𝕵𝖓. I think I probably am more on we're probably overlapping a lot more than you guys think, where you guys think it's a very big, I guess, like pull apart.
I want to just real quick, 𝕵𝖎. I just want to, having thought about it, I spoke in haste. I probably would not give up my seat to a stranger unless they were a child, right? So no, I'll give you that. I
Okay,
probably
thank
would.
you.
But if it was a woman who was in my purview, right? Like significant other,
Yeah,
sister, mother,
sure.
etc. I think I absolutely would, and I would judge someone for doing that. So
Would you give it up for your
course.
brother?
Can I ask my question?
Would you give it up for your
Yeah.
brother?
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely. I'm
have
the
a
oldest
That
brother.
should be a no-brainer. That should be a
I'm the oldest
no-brainer.
son. I have to. I'm the oldest son.
Yeah, I think I would. I'm trying to be a little less
Okay.
knee-jerk about my response since I made the wrong response before. No, I'm being real with you. I'm trying to be
Respect.
real.
Son, I'm the oldest
no,
son.
I think
grandson.
as someone who is like who can sit like, yes, I think it would make me less of a man not to. Right now, if I had a brother, and I don't, if I had a brother, I'd expect him to try to. I'd expect it to be a fight. I'd expect it to be a fight.
And what I think is, and you know what I think is, in most happy couples between a man and a woman, the woman would push just as much to say no. Let
But
you.
it's
you
the
go
man's
backstage.
job to say no.
I agree, but I'm
My
saying,
wife
you
would
see,
be
like
like,
how that's a feminine thing, and a feminine and from a feminine perspective, she might have the exact same position of like, I care for you, whatever, like let me sacrifice myself for you. So I don't even know if that's a masculine thing.
But she'd
I have a
listen.
question.
That's
Can I ask
the
my
question.
question? I didn't get a chance to finish asking.
Yeah,
Heem
go
went to
ahead.
derail Heem, and I didn't get a chance to ask my second part of my question.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, okay. So, do you not think testosterone plays a difference, plays a factor into the cognitive differences between males and females?
In terms of behaviorally,
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit in terms of anger and like spontaneity, maybe, or something like that, or like stuff like that.
You don't
Yeah.
think that has anything to do with how we
Eroticism.
stratify gender roles?
Sorry.
You don't think that has anything to do the biological and innate difference between males and females? You don't think that has anything to do with how we
I think
stratify gender roles and gender expectations?
I think that it has had effects on how things have played out in the past and into the present, but I don't think it's an innate thing that it needs to be like that. That's where we differ. I don't agree that it needs to be.
Wait. Physical jobs have not disappeared. And when you look at these physical jobs like construction or like the military or like road workers, I mean, who do you think makes up these jobs?
99-1.
Do you think there's like a coincidence that like the jobs that require physical ability tend to line up and like are culturally encouraged? We can culturally encourage the people with higher rates of testosterone to do those jobs.
No,
It
of
seems
course
to
not. No, yeah, but
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of the but before it used to be 100% of jobs were dependent on your physical abilities. When we were cavemen, that was 100% was
Still is
physical
to this
abilities.
day,
How
though.
much can you hunt? How much shit can you carry? That was what it used to be, and now we've moved very far away from that to where we can sit behind a computer, and now our physical abilities are washed. We can work at an office, and our physical abilities are washed. We can be in academia, and our physical differences are washed. That's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
But construction is still a lot of.
Yeah, of course, construction.
Yeah. It's probably I agree that it's probably to a lesser extent when you look at like the rise of different physical
Yeah.
forms of labor.
Yeah.
But like that being said, that doesn't eliminate the fact that there is still like a massive market of physical labor that gender roles inform. But then also like
But not enough
like
for every man,
like
right?
what about like, so we talked about like physical strength, like mental differences as well, like the effects of
You're forgetting a
the
massive
way
one.
childbirth.
Childbirth.
That's a pretty fucking big thing when we're considering
Okay.
like how to treat people.
Okay.
How-
We
I don't know.
are missing the point. I think that we're going down a rabbit hole, right? I want to talk about masculinity, not whether or not women are strong. Okay. I want to talk about right.
No, this
This
all informs what a man is.
Yeah.
Right. This is why it's important.
It's part of
But
it.
hold on, Wick.
But
Can I say
you-
this
wait.
real quick, Wick? Higher levels of testosterone were associated with higher levels of spatial reasoning ability. That's it.
Okay. Part of being a man is regardless of what hand, and I truly believe this, regardless of what hand you are dealt in life, you have a responsibility to act with honor, dignity, and respect, right? In whatever context that puts you. That doesn't mean that women aren't also expected to do these same things. I'm just cutting off some things like, well, what about women? What about them, right? We're talking about men today, okay? And I think that we have lost the ability to identify what that means to be a man in today's society, because for very good reasons, right? Because the old models were flawed, deeply flawed, but we have to develop a new model, or else we're going to be in a world of hurt when it comes to the Tates and the Fresh and Fits and all these things. We need to figure out a way to appeal to the younger generation, because they're the generation that feels most lost. Luckily, when I grew up, I'm a little older than Counterpoints here. I'm 39 years old, okay? When I grew up, there was very good role models for me. My dad was an excellent role model in a lot of ways. My teachers, right? I had some other male role models. My uncle, very good role models in a lot of ways. Not perfect, but good role models. And I think that, again, these are compounding variables. We see a lack of fathers in the home. That's a huge crisis that we're having. We see a lack of positive role models in media and things. Role models are just, I don't know. We need specifically male role models that young men can identify with. I struggle to see any.
We need role models that are happy and proud to say, yes, I am a man. That's
True.
what we need.
I think a lot of this stuff has to start like back in the high school things. I'm not sure if these are things that are being upheld to this day, but like me being active in sports and stuff like that, every game day, where our coach was adamant about that. You're wearing a suit. You know what I'm saying? A suit and tie. You go through the whole day at school, being presenting as a gentleman. You know what I'm saying? And these words like being a gentleman or being stuff like that aren't used anymore. You got to be uber Chad instead of being, a decent, good
and what it
human being.
means. Like, look, we can it's almost not even important what that looks like, right? Whether it's a suit and tie or whether it's some other form of garb or uniform or things like that. What's more important is that there is one.
Yeah.
And there's not one currently. And there's a lot of people celebrating the fact that there's not one. And it's causing a problem. But we are kind of winding down. And this is the reason I interjected here, because I want to give people respect their time, respect, their day. We got as a lot of responsibilities, as manly men that we must fulfill. So I want to give everyone here closing thoughts, closing statements. And then if you need to go, you can go. We'll open it up to people after this. If you have been watching this and think we're all wrong or missing something, or if you're a woman who wants to be on a WhickTV panel, jump in the Discord, jump backstage, and we can talk. But I want to give everyone some outro, tell people where they can find you, tell people closing thoughts on this. Start with Darius. Go ahead.
My name is Darius. I live in the state of Alabama. I am currently in I'm still enrolled in undergraduate. I spent time in the United States military. And my goals I graduated from college is to practice medicine. You can find me on Twitter at Darius Yancey. That's all I got for you. You guys have a good day.
Hey, you too. Counterpoint.
Yep. My name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints 40K, also Counterpoints Coliseum, and then just Counterpoints. Counterpoints is an essay channel. Counterpoints Coliseum is a debate channel where I post all my stream VODs. And then Counterpoints 40K is where I break down Warhammer 40,000 animations and cinematics and go through lore and all that kind of stuff. So if any of that interests you, just check me out. Type in Counterpoints common spelling. Lucky for me, I am big enough now that I will be the first channel that pops. And then I'm trying to think of what else. Any closing thoughts on this? I think that the stereotypical archetypes are good. I think that they give us guidance to where we need to be. There's obviously toxic representatives of what it is to be a man, and those are pernicious and pervasive in our society. I think it's time that people stopped going through like the liberal live and let live perspective. And obviously live and let live, don't like go kill Andrew Tate, but at the same time say, hey, Republicans and conservatives shouldn't be worshiping what is effectively a glorified Romanian pimp just because he pisses off the libs. That is cringe, and it sucks, and it shouldn't be happening. And so yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thanks for being here. Heem, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Heem. I took 9 months off streaming to give birth to my child. Just joking. To have a baby though, we had to prep the house and I had to do shit with my degree and stuff. But yeah, it's good to be back. I'm back to doing panels and debates and whatever. You can catch me in the mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern time, where I do some reactions, talk to chatters, take calls. I don't know. You never know what you're gonna get. Anyways, it's been nice hanging out with you guys. I think this is a productive conversation, even if we had some disagreements. But sadly, I guess I'm just too black-pilled on on whether or not a wholesome masculine content can really appeal beyond like primitive technology, YouTube channels and stuff like that. But yeah, if you want to come, I think I'm a pretty good role model. I've had struggles, I've had successes, I've I've done it all. Come catch me twitch.tv/𝕲 or on YouTube. You can look me up at 𝕲. And yeah, man, it's been wonderful hanging out and a bunch of new faces, old face over here, counterpoints. By the way, counterpoints, you said you went swimming. Did you take the new child swimming?
No, he's 3 weeks old, so not yet.
We just took our 2-month-old swimming a couple of days ago, and I was shocked she didn't cry her eyes out. It was blown away.
Good instincts.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate having you, and glad to see you're back. It's really nice interacting with you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
𝕲𝖊.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm 𝕲𝖊. You can find me at 𝕲𝖊TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Final thoughts here. I think kind of in agreement with counterpoints. I think the gender roles are a good thing. I think they are also informed by biology. I think they're inevitable. And I think a lot of the problems, a lot of the crisis for masculinity has come from a bunch of misandrist feminists who have been dictating to men what they believe men should be, as opposed to the needed changes in masculinity coming from within male spaces. And I think we do have to change certain things, and I do think we have to do soul searching, but never feel ashamed about who you are. Don't ever let anybody tell you, well, you're just a man, to invalidate your opinion. Your opinion's worth just as much as any other person. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
𝕲𝖊, always a pleasure. 𝕾𝖍𝖎.
Hey, you mind if I go after 𝕲𝖎? Because I have a question for counterpoint. We got a mutual friend that wanted me to ask him something.
Okay, you can ask it in the open, right? Or
Yeah,
just DM it to him. But okay, that's fine. You can go last. If you like. 𝕲𝖎.
Yeah, so I'm 𝕲𝖎. I've got a YouTube channel. I really need to post something because I'm lazy as fuck. But anyway, masculinity is not going anywhere. I don't think there's masculinity is in a state of crisis. I'd agree with 𝕲𝖊. It does need to do a little soul searching. There are some issues that we do need to address, but we're not going to address those issues by deconstructing and stigmatizing masculinity. We need to destigmatize masculinity and like encourage and engender a real healthy, positive masculinity.
Okay. 𝕾𝖍𝖎.
And I am Majin. You can find me at MajinBMac on Twitter or on Instagram at MacBMajin. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm 38. I kind of with 𝕲𝖎 on this. I think like being a man has to be like, you have to be an example. It's again, like I said at the beginning, it's a thankless job. Just try to be the best person and try your hardest to move forward through this world and help whoever you can. You know what I'm saying? Be a model of strength. And yeah, that's my point. And then to my
really quick. I'm sorry.
hold on, real quick.
I'll hang out.
This is the most handsome panel these people have ever seen.
Okay,
just throwing that
beautiful.
out there.
With that said, if you like this content, like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button. Really helps me out more than you know. It helps the algorithm.
Gotcha,
and if you're on Twitch, throw me some subs and bits. I'd really like it. But let's open it up and bring some people on.
All right, real quick counterpoints. I don't want you to leave. So, we have a mutual friend named Loken, and he wanted me to ask you if you have to be a space marine from one legion, which legion would most suit your personality?
So the personality is Blood Angels. So Blood Angels are like really nice guys until you freak them out, and then they fucking freak out and like rip your throat out. So personality wise, Blood Angels 100%. But my favorite legion, because there's chapters and there's legions, pre-heresy Luna Wolves are fucking amazing. And basically, for those of you who are uninitiated in the Warhammer universe, the Luna Wolves are very much like the Ultramarines. They're very tactical. They're very pragmatic. They're very like going with the flow. Like they follow the battle in a very progressive manner that makes sense. But they have iconography of wolves, and they also like to rip people's throats out. So yeah,
what's more?
I love the space.
What's
fucking nerd.
I love the space wolves.
Okay. We got some question havers or commenters.
Well, I gotta jump to
me too.
Prime's panel,
Good
but
luck,
I
guys.
appreciate you. Have a beautiful night.
Yeah, bro.
We'll see you. Bye bye. If you need to go, feel free. Panel's over. Frank, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm shocked to see you. How's it going? How are you?
Actually, I'm pretending to be Brianna right now.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome. So
No, she said like, "Hey, there's a panel about masculinity, and you're the most masculine dude I know," which I find very flattering and kind of surprising and stunning. And so I've got some thoughts about that topic.
by all means, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, do we need to introduce the other panelists, or like have everyone
this is
say
open panel?
hello? Or
All the important people have already spoken.
yeah, all the important people.
okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened like before I came on, so
Yeah,
I
we've been
don't
going
want
at
to
this for 2 hours. We're good.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, hi everybody who doesn't anybody that doesn't know me. I'm Frank Wu. I'm Brianna Wu's lesser half. And okay, so the question is, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be masculine? And I've been thinking about this since Brianna asked me to be on this panel like 45 minutes ago. And the thing that comes to mind is that old Jonathan Richman song that he played with the Modern Lovers, and it was redone for the Repo Man soundtrack, which is Pablo Picasso. And it's got these words, which are, "Be thou not schmuck, be not obnoxious, don't be bell-bottom bummer or asshole, but remember the story of Pablo Picasso. He was only 5'3", but girls could not resist his stare. And Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole. Not like you." And so the idea is that, like, okay, you could be... Yeah, okay, so the other thing that came to mind was Rudyard Kipling made a comment about there's 1,000 tribal laws and all of them are right, or something like that. And I was thinking that, like, really there's 1,000 ways to be a man and all of them are right. And there's 1,000 ways to be an asshole and all of them are wrong. So you could be one...
Well, let me ask directly.
Wait, so, were you talking about Pablo Picasso? Pablo Picasso?
Pablo Picasso, the artist, yeah.
Picasso.
So he could get away with stuff because he was Pablo Picasso, but you and I can't get away with because we are not Pablo Picasso.
I don't know. I think I just pulled up an article on The Guardian. It was like talking about Pablo Picasso being a misogynist.
Well,
Frank advocating for misogyny.
He did once. No, I'm not advocating for misogyny. He did once say, I think he said, like, and I cannot make love to a woman without making babies, which I think is. But anyway, but the idea behind this is basically, don't be an asshole.
So I guess
that's my point. That's my point.
Just be a talented asshole.
Sure. Frank, I'll ask you directly, right? In what ways do you, right, try to be a man in your life? Like, what are things that you try to do to be, I'm a man in your life? What do you do?
Okay, so I just had this story published in Analog, which is military science fiction, which I'm very proud of because I've never been in the military, and I applaud people that have served. And so I was reading the Blue Jacket manual as part of the research for this, and there's a line in there that just really struck me, which is, if you're given a lawful order by your superior, do it promptly and without complaint. And there are things that, as a dude, I need to do, like, okay, Frank, there's dog shit on the basement floor. Who's going to clean it up? And it's like, okay, well, I clean it up so that Brianna doesn't have to. And, like, that's a dude. That, in my mind, is what a dude does. And if the baby is, like, needs a diaper change at 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't actually have a baby. But if I did, like, that's, like, what a dude does. He, like, does the things that he's supposed to do without complaint and looks out for his family.
Okay. I want to give some space to some other people on the panel.
Yeah.
𝕵𝖔𝖎𝖙, is that how I say your name? You're muted if you're trying to talk. Oh, here we go. Floor's yours, 𝕵𝖎𝖙. Hello, you got a question for us? Uh-oh. We can't hear you. Don't know what. I hope you can fix it, and we'll get to the next person. Admiral Love, what you got for us?
Hi, everyone.
Oh, I'll turn you down a little bit. Hold on.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's my bad. Go ahead.
Okay. I just had a couple kind of simple points to make. I think one of them is maybe kind of obvious, but I haven't heard anyone really say it. But when you're talking about femininity and masculinity, you're really talking about very general associations, right? And you can always, you don't have to always associate that with a particular individual in order for them to be masculine or feminine, right? So it's already a kind of a wishy-washy thing. But the other thing that I think is kind of true is that femininity and masculinity are still mutually exclusive. So if you take a trait and you say it's masculine, I think you're necessarily saying it's not feminine. And so I become skeptical mostly when these associations are very broad and very positive, and you run the risk of necessarily excluding them from being associated with femininity. And this is especially
just real quick. I just disagree with that on its face. I think that you can have a trait that is both masculine and feminine. And
I think at that point it's just
I agree that I disagree.
It's ungendered and neutral. It's a neutral trait.
Yeah, it's like saying you wouldn't say breathing air or eating food is a masculine trait because both do it.
True, but you would say being responsible. If you were not responsible, you are not a man, and if you are not responsible, you're not a good woman either, right?
Well, you're just not a good.
You would say that.
You would simplify that by saying you're not a good person. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. Well, the other thing I wanted to say is a lot of what we associate with masculinity involves sacrifice, and sacrifice is already by definition kind of like doing something for good for somebody else that they can't reciprocate because it's a sacrifice on your end. Like sacrifice is like a one-sided exchange, right? So when we say that we associate sacrifice with masculinity, which is kind of the core of a lot of the associations that have come up today, I think you're also excluding women from participating in this honorable form of sacrifice that accrues a lot of, unless you believe that it's somehow accurate to say that it can be both masculine and feminine in some
technically
sense.
It can. For example, a mother can sacrifice her
that's
child.
my
go ahead, Xerxes.
Yeah, I mean, technically that isn't true. A mother can sacrifice for her child. Does that make her masculine? You say by definition it can't be because men can't have children. And yet still, the virtue of sacrifice can still be shown in being a woman. So I honestly would kind of want to start off with, I think that the conversation itself is kind of framed incorrectly. And I think you guys are using the terms masculine and femininity wrong. Because essentially what the words really mean are traits you primarily find in a male or a female. But a lot of what we've done here is ascribed virtue to masculinity or virtues to femininity. That's why someone here, I think he just left, maybe he's coming back, always says, but both men and women can do it. Well, that's because you guys are talking about virtues, not like traits you primarily find in a male. So for example, aggression is a trait you primarily find in men. Men have to be aggressive whether to pursue women or whether to pursue their career choices, right? Or to do anything, really.
Right. This is all general,
right?
Yeah,
that doesn't mean a woman can't be aggressive, right? It doesn't mean that a woman can never be aggressive, because obviously we've met aggressive women. But the reason why we say aggression is masculine is because overwhelmingly men are aggressive people. By far, women are overwhelmingly passive. Women stand, they wait, they have people come to them, like particularly men in like the dating sphere. So I think that I think he left. He had a great point where it's like we're talking about like honor. Honor more or less is how people treat each other. Like what are the social expectations or moral expectations people have between each other? To say that that is a masculine thing is true because overwhelmingly the concept of honor, I mean, for great examples, can be found both in Japan with Bushido and Chivalry and Europe. You know, two countries never interact with each other yet still have some code of conduct that men have to be in order to be a good warrior or be a respectful warrior. So like just overwhelmingly throughout human history, we have the concept of honor and respecting your opponent or respecting each other in male. Noblesse oblige, if I say it correctly. The obligation that nobles have to help those lesser than them. Again, like that compassion and honor is just found in being a man that you don't really see in a code of conduct for being a woman.
You just gave an example, though, of that being in women when women sacrifice for their children.
Oh, exactly, right? But that's the virtue. But overwhelmingly, again, when you look at the term, we're talking about overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
When you look
these
generally,
same virtues manifest differently. And we can say whether these things are right or wrong or good or bad, right? We can say that it's probably a bad thing that men are expected to shoulder the burden of physical sacrifice when it comes to like serving in the military and things like that. Argument can be made that that's maybe not something we want, but it's something that absolutely is in our culture, right? do we disagree?
I'm gonna use this dead air
Um,
opportunity to say goodbye to everyone.
Peace out, Girl Scout,
All
brother.
right, take
Nice to
care.
meet
Chat
you,
with
Heem.
somebody.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, great conversation, brother.
Yes, much
Alright.
love. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Okay, little bug
Peace
boy.
out.
Uh-oh. Well, he was here for a minute. 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, you got your mic working now? Let's we can give it a go. You're muted. Oh, maybe not. Try exiting Discord and just joining back up. Frank, go ahead.
Oh no, I was like indicating that I couldn't hear him.
I
But
thought
I
this
do
was...
I do have a point which relates to
Go
what
ahead.
we were talking about whether or not these traits which make someone particularly masculine may also apply to women. And I think of like okay, I'm a Christian, and whether or not you all are like, well, we can talk about that separately. But anyway, Jesus said that everything hangs on two things: love God, which really doesn't apply to you if you're an atheist, but love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And which, of course, is dependent on you actually loving yourself, which is a separate issue, which I think is a problem with some people. But the idea, he didn't say, okay, these two things, love God and love your neighbor, apply only to men. He didn't say it applied to women. He just said it. Like, this is it. This is what applies to everybody. And that idea of loving your neighbor applies to both men and women and everybody. And it may manifest itself in different ways. And maybe a dude loves his neighbor by helping his neighbor, like, fix his fence because the dog chewed through it. And maybe a woman might decide to, like, bake cookies for their neighbor, as like a lot of people in church did. It's like, I knew this woman whose entire ministry was the hug ministry, where she would just go up and see someone that looked kind of sad and say, "Would you like a hug?" And she'd give them a hug. It was like the best fucking thing. And if a dude did that, that would be freaky.
Yeah, this is a good
like,
example.
Don't do that.
This is a good example of how these things manifest in different ways in our societies. That hug ministry. A woman doing it, fine.
Yeah,
if I tried to do the hug ministry, like I'm going to go and do
like,
the hug ministry, gang.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
but if you want to
weird.
do the cookie ministry, if you want to bake cookies for everybody, that'd be great. And if a woman wanted to fix all of her neighbors' fences, that'd be awesome too. It's just that, like, dudes are more likely to do one thing and women are more likely to do other. It's not that it's necessarily better or worse. It's
Let me because I'm gonna get up out of here too.
Okay.
I'm gonna make me some food.
Okay.
Hey man, peace and love. Thank you for the opportunity to come on your panel and stuff like that. I really appreciate it. Hope my nervousness and stuff. I know it's a different person between the conversation and here. I couldn't bring it together like I normally do. The bright shining lights, right? Good. But peace and love, gangster. You have a good day and nice meeting the rest of y'all.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace out.
See you later.
Little bug boy, what you got for us?
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Several of the people that I was hoping to kind of more talk to have left, so I'll maybe make it less of a question.
We'll try to be entertaining.
More of a comment, perhaps more. I'm 25 years old. I'm very much going through my Petersonian era right now, trying to shoulder my responsibility, clean my metaphorical room. And something I've noticed is two things. Number one is no one wants to make any strong claims about anything. Everybody wants to say, this is how I want to be a man. Here's what I like to do. But everybody has different ways. There's a million ways to do it. And it's not just Frank. I think other people, this is a very common, this more or less is the blue pill. Everybody, there's a million communities. Go find your little, as Camus would say, go find your small world. Find a little small world. Find what it means to be a man in your little small world, and that's the best you can do. You can live with the best you can live with. I would definitely say the Petersonian moment, the thing that I'm attached to, and obviously he was brought up before. There actually seems to be a bit more of a something below that. There's something below all there. There are little individual communities, but there's something what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be good. What
more
it means
foundational,
to be
you mean? When you
That's
say below, you mean
exactly.
foundational? Okay.
There's some of them are wrong. And some of them are right. Some of the claims we make are wrong. Some of them are right. And perhaps the comment would be to 𝕬𝖎𝖏, I very much appreciate your panels. I watch almost every one of them, even though I don't really participate too much in them. And I like your masculinity panels quite a bit. And I wanted to talk to Heem and Connor about this because they talk about this a lot. But I feel like everybody here probably thinks about this. We need to be more comfortable making strong claims. it's very difficult to have this discussion because I don't really know. I know
Mhm.
for sure what the really ridiculous people believe, right? I know what the ridiculous gender abolitionists believe, and I know what the red pillars believe. I don't
Mhm.
really know what's like the moderate position. It seems to be a wishy-washy. Well, everybody has their own position,
Wait.
and I'm telling you this. Something that got brought up earlier was talking a little bit about an honor culture, and I really was liking this. Part about being something I'm finding is part about being a man is like seeing within yourself, within your community, within your family, within your life, the things that you have that you value, taking responsibility for that value, and then enhancing and bringing more value to that. You need to be able to have something to give other people, to give a potential partner, to give to your family, to give to your community, or you're not going to be fulfilled. Now, in and of itself, that's probably true about all human beings, but that's something that I found is at least very important to a sense of my masculinity, and I think a lot of other people's masculinity.
Yeah, I
It doesn't
understand.
get
If I haven't been clear, allow me to do so now. I think that for me, I'm not entirely sure, right? All the ins and outs of it, but for me personally, what it means to be a man, like I said, taking responsibility for your life and the zones you control within that life, your job, your family, your children, your peer group, your friend group, etc., and making sure that you're able to be there for them and being a protector, right? Being a protector both emotionally and physically for those weaker than you and those in your purview, right? To stand up when someone threatens your family and say, you are going to have to get through me, right? Even if, right? Even if I had a nephew who was like a black belt in karate and was super cool, I would still stand up, get in front of it, and say, no, this is, I am going to at least participate in being protected. And I would judge any man who wouldn't, right? I would judge any man in a way that I wouldn't judge women for stepping back. I would say, okay, well, I understand, but I would absolutely judge a man for doing that. So those are my two, right? Responsibility and protectorship. And I think those are my core. There are other things I probably go through.
Sorry.
But, yeah.
You would probably say though that those are actually both shared by women too, but that they just manifest.
Why do you
differently.
keep doing this? Stop.
That's the. I'm just trying to see where we're at. We're trying to see. I'm trying to see where you're at with this. You're saying those belong to women too, but they'll manifest different. So like the idea of taking care of somebody will probably be like less
if a
protecting
woman
them and
steps
maybe more
behind their
providing
partner,
emotional support or something.
I do not judge them. Like if a mountain cat comes and threatens and a woman steps behind their partner, I do not judge them for that. If a man steps behind their partner, I do. That's the difference.
I would like to address this. This comes up every single masculinity panel. The very interesting and useful insight that if we isolate any value, it's a universal human value. It's good to be good and it's bad to be bad. It's good to be organized and it's bad to be disorganized. It's good to be a leader and it's bad to be somebody who's obstinate. It's not very useful to point out that any of these things we're going to say, if we isolate them, are universal human values. I actually can't think of a value that I only give to women or only give to men. I don't even know what, like, I don't even know what that would, I can't even think. I think anything, if you just compartmentalize it, you can say, well, this is universal. It is universal. We're talking about a package. That's the first thing. We're talking about a package of values. And this is the more important thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the philosopher Heidegger, but he talks about this idea of being in time, Dasein. We're talking about what it actually means to be a man and experience these things. Everybody experiences hardship, failure, social pressure, but it's unique to experience that as a man versus experience that as a woman. That's my idea.
Yeah. Does that answer it?
There are some things that men are more. Look, there are some things that men are more likely to do than women. And during Gamergate, when Brianna was getting a lot of harassment online, okay, so actually that was supposed to be during Gamergate. Brianna was getting a lot of harassment online, death threats, and just all sorts of horrible shit. Almost all of that came from men. And over the years since then, some of them have approached her and said, I'm sorry I was an asshole. I was going through all this horrible shit in my life. I didn't know who I was. I was lashing out. I was mad at my parents. I was poor. I was like, whatever. And it's like, women don't necessarily do that, at least to the same extent that dudes do. And yes, I know that there are some women that are like,
to be clear, do you mean
mean,
harassing or do you mean apologizing?
I mean harassing.
Oh, okay.
So they have to
clear.
apologize.
Fair enough.
I don't think I can co-sign with that one, my man.
No, I'm willing to hear other points of view. Say your piece.
I've definitely seen feminists lash out at multiple different people, just depending on the subject matter. Just on Twitter. I mean, for example, just the other day, while it was overwhelmingly positive, there were a few people that were upset, and I'll tell you the story. This dude made a tweet about how his son turned 8 after his mother died technically she didn't give birth to him. They had an emergency C-section for the child because his mother was brain dead. So they did a C-section. They got him out. He was I think he was 2 pounds. But obviously 8 years later, he's alive. He's good and he's fine. But there were a couple of ladies in there that were upset with the man for using his wife as an incubator for their child. It was just the silliest thing I'd ever seen. So
okay, just to add some context, because I read this tweet too. Just to add some context, the important part was she was kept alive on machines for about a few weeks, right? Where after she had her accident, she became brain dead, and they kept her alive on machines for a few weeks.
Yeah, the life support.
That
she could have, the baby would
have the baby. And so the responses that I read that 𝕵𝖎𝖎 here is referring to were talking about this being a terrible dystopian thing, that women were being used as incubators in this way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's that's not harassment though, 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
I think you're touching, but
the idea of
let Frank go. Frank, go ahead.
You're touching on. I have some knowledge of how women work, but I don't have all knowledge, obviously. So, but I think that we're touching on one of a woman's deepest, darkest fears of being reduced to being an incubator and having all agency taken away. And it's in the natural course of things, if she was out in the wild, she would have died and get eaten by a mountain lion. But no, scientific intervention happens, medical interventions, and this thing that she has no say in happens to her body, and that's gotta be the most horrifying thing, or one of the top 5 most horrifying things that a woman can think of happening to her.
Can we ask this question on it? And this is the question of virtue, right? Do you think a mother who loves her child wouldn't choose this path? To allow her body to continue to let her child live until he can be viable to come out?
I think
because if we're talking about virtue, we're talking about
we're
talking about all the different things about what makes a man. We're talking about virtue. We're talking about sacrifice. You think a woman wouldn't want to do that for her child? Because I think
most women would want to do that for their child. Yeah.
I mean, I think it would still be a nightmare scenario, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course.
This
is dire
absolutely horrifying. Right?
Let's be clear.
This is the end game, right? You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, Admiral Love. Yeah, it would be horrifying if they were still they were brain dead. They were gone. They were dead. They were dead. It was just a body. That was all it was just a meat and organs. It was a machine. They're no longer there, right?
Right.
But I understand the body dystopian horror. If this was a situation where the woman was thinking of getting an abortion or something, and that choice was taken away from her, and she was rendered unconscious in order to give birth, that's horrifying. But that's not what happened. They were planning to have this baby. They were planning to have this child. And But I want to give, before we get down that rabbit hole too much, I want to give 𝕵𝖎𝖎 and 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, can you hear? Can we hear you now? Are you working? Audio's still not coming through. I don't know what. Are you using the right microphone? I'm not sure what it is, but it's not working.
Yeah, you might need to go to switch microphone.
Yeah.
And voice and video and change the input device.
While she figures that out, 𝕵𝖎𝖎, go ahead. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to comment on what Kobe was saying. I mean, I don't understand why people are having such a hard time identifying like what certain masculine traits are. Like it is about like Wick, I think you labeled out or you laid out a good collection of some of those traits. Like yes, as the man, you're expected to embrace challenges, you're expected to overcome them, you're expected to, when you are a part of a group, like 𝕾𝖍𝖎 said, you're expected to contribute something of value, you're expected to elevate the group. You don't just come into something as a man. You don't just come into something and follow people. You're expected to make a significant contribution to it. You're expected to develop your own ideas, whatever form that manifests in. You're expected to embrace sacrifice. You're just expected to, it's just a part of being a man that you give up things and you don't complain about it. It's odorous when men complain about having to make sacrifices. Women, they can complain to some extent about making sacrifices. They can't act like children, right? But men, they're just expected to make sacrifices, whether it be for your family, for society, for your job. This is part of what men have to do. You're expected to, even if you don't want to, people will turn to you for your guidance and for your counsel. It's uninteresting, like 𝕾𝖍𝖎's saying, to point out that, oh, well, you can have a woman and she could be a professor at a really distinguished university and people will turn to her as well for her counsel. Well, yes, but if a woman can't offer you that counsel, no man is really going to look down on her for not being able to provide that. If a man can't provide leadership, he can't provide counsel, he can't provide like physical things for a partner or a woman or anyone, people would look at you differently. They look down on you. It demasculinizes you to society. And whether you agree with that or not, I'm sorry, but that's just the case. That's just the facts of the world. And if you're in any kind
I
of
disagree with that a
relationship or
lot.
anything like that, well, that's fine to disagree with it, but I guarantee you that most women you date, if you exhibit any of those properties, too many of them, it becomes odorous to women and they don't like it. And why don't they like it? Because you're not exhibiting the qualities of a valuable man to them. And this isn't about like psychoanalyzing people or whatever. These are virtuous properties. These are good things to have. And society expects men, what they're calling men, to have these qualities.
So first of all, thank you for the sub. Clearly crystal clear. I really appreciate you, gang. If you like the channel and you want to support me, that's how you do it. 𝕵𝖎𝖎, I'm going to give you one more chance. Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Hear me?
We have. It's working. I heard that. Did anyone else?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Okay, let's let the woman have some space to ask the men some questions, right? What questions or comments do you have for us?
I want to ask you a question, Rick. Do you believe that all humans are equal?
No.
Why?
Because some people are better than others for a variety of reasons, whether it be for just biological, or whether it be because of how they were raised or their determination. But it's clearly just not the case that all people are just equal. It's just not.
Well, wait, I believe that people have equal value.
Yes.
And should be treated equally under the law, no matter how rich or poor or whatever they look like. And
but that
whatever
wasn't the question.
Yeah.
So...
But I also agree, yes, people are different physically. Some people are stronger, some people are weaker, some people are smarter, some people are, well, dumb. And some people are more articulate, some people can sing well, some people can't. I'm in the latter category. Don't ask me to sing.
Yeah.
That was a joke. You're supposed to laugh.
Even under the law, right? Well, we're not going to laugh at jokes that aren't funny, okay? No, but even under the law, people shouldn't be treated like, if your treatment should be based on your behavior. So if you behave poorly, you're going to be treated differently than if you behave well. And I think that's a good thing, mostly, right? And so yeah, that's my answer to your question. What else you got for me? Floor's yours, 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Do you think of yourself as a masculine man?
Ooh. In some ways, yes. Some ways, no. I don't think that I am as masculine as some. I am more masculine than others. I think that I strive to perform positive masculine things, such as being a protector, a provider, and someone who is there and adding value. I try. I don't always succeed.
Does anyone else want to answer that?
Oh,
Oh wait,
yeah.
oh that was for everybody.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
I thought you were just talking to Wick. I would consider myself pretty masculine. I think overwhelmingly I relate to men more than I relate to women. So I would think that I'm going by that definition of having traits mostly associated with men. Yeah.
I'd say I'm 56% masculine, 44% feminine.
I'm
Frank, are
100%
you
masculine.
okay?
No, it's an ideal, something I think that we all strive to, right? I think, and what's that Game of Thrones quote that Destiny just said the other day on his stream? Like, if you have to say you're a king, you're not a real king.
First of all,
right?
Destiny didn't say it. Fairy Queen said it. Don't
Okay, I'm sorry, that's
steal
misogynist
her
of me.
line, right, and ascribe it to Destiny.
That's misogynist
Fairy
of me. I'm
Queen
sorry.
made that, but yeah.
If you're a man, I don't think if you're a manly man, probably doesn't have to answer the question, "Am I a manly man?" Too much. He kind of just has to give a grimace and look. But I have to
Yeah,
go.
but then
Speaking
you
of being a
can-
manly man, I'm going to go to the gym actually and go lift weights and go do all this kind
Good
of thing. So
luck.
thank you very much for the conversation.
Of course. Thanks for being here. What do you think, Frank? You're the last one here. Manly man.
To be honest, this is not a question that I've thought about in a long time. I worry more about whether I'm being true to me and being me, and I think as a natural consequence of a man being whoever they're supposed to be, they become more masculine and more manly. And yeah, I had a thought and it's gone now. Oh yeah. The reason I was talking about 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 attacking my wife and then saying, well, I did that because I didn't know who I was, goes back to that idea that I was talking about okay, Jesus said there's two things: love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. But that only works if you really love yourself. And there are a lot of people who are going around and they fucking hate themselves. They hate who they are. They don't like what they look like. They don't like how they act. They don't like they know, gee, maybe I shouldn't drink as much, but they can't do it. And it's like, if you're struggling with that stuff, I'm not sure you've really fulfilled. You're not necessarily a fulfilled person, and I don't think that you can be the full embodiment of masculinity if you're still have these basic things that oh my god, I'm still angry at my parents from when I was 12. It's let go of that shit, dude. And if you can't let go of that shit, you can't. I'm not really sure that you can really be the full man that you should be.
I guess I'd ask you, right? Do you think that masculinity is something that people feel comfortable being proud of today?
Are you asking me or everybody?
Well, this is everyone. It was said earlier, just to kind of add some context here to the question. It was said earlier that masculinity is under attack. Now, some people agreed with that, some didn't. I personally do agree with that, and I think that there absolutely is a problem with men not being comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm proud to be a man," and that's okay.
Yeah, I would.
Hey,
I would definitely.
I am proud to be a man. I am happy to be a man. I am. Well, I'm happy who I am. And I'm happy where I am with life. But yeah, I'm happy I'm a dude.
A lot of people aren't.
I think the problem again is just really talking about these things too broadly, because the more specific you get about behaviors or trends and behaviors, and the more obvious it becomes.
Okay,
that is
so
toxic
in May there was this 3,000. Can you do 3,000 push-ups in May as part of the St. Jude thing? And Brianna says, I said to Brianna, okay, well, how many push-ups can you do? And she said, 0. And I said, well, I'm going to try and do this thing where it's 100 push-ups a day in May. And she's like, yeah, go for it. And I did that. And because I have testosterone,
Sure.
and I'm a dude, and like for most dudes, doing something like that would be easier than for most women. I'm not saying that there are some women that can't do that. I'm not saying that there are some dudes that would have a hard problem doing that. But like for the average dude, it'd be a lot easier to do that than for the average woman. And I'm glad that I was able to do that because that was kind of cool.
To respond though, Admiral Love, I think we're having the opposite problem more. Is that we are getting too hyper specific, so we lose track of the forest because we're busy looking at this tree. Like, well, in this specific case, in this very hyper specific, this one situation, we can see edge cases and things that it doesn't apply to the general, and that's true, but it misses the point, right? It misses again that, as Tubi said, and as Kobe said earlier, like we can have similar virtues, as Cersei would say, but they will be experienced in different ways due to one person being a man, one being woman. That doesn't make this virtue or this behavior masculine or less masculine, right? Or any less masculine, because women can also experience this in a different way. These are still masculine traits, because the way we experience them and the way they're manifested are fundamentally, markedly, and observably different than how women do in most cases.
Yeah, I still have yet to hear a virtue that isn't applicable to both genders but manifests differently. And I totally agree with that.
But again, the
I don't
question isn't
like
why should why would
one, and it's like, yeah, like in the example you gave of the man protecting the woman from a mountain lion, where the fuck it was. Like, yeah. I totally agree with that. That's a masculine thing to do, and it wouldn't be particularly feminine if those roles were reversed, right? We would call that exceptional. But there are situations where you do expect a woman to be very protective, particularly of children. And infants, for example, the woman sacrificing her body to when she's brain dead to continue incubating her child.
No, I mean, it wasn't a choice she made. There's no virtue in that.
Well, we don't know that. Maybe it's in her HIPAA disclosure or some shit like that. Maybe she had an advanced health care director. I have no fucking idea. But you see what I'm saying, though, right? Like that these virtues, I think,
but I don't think it's coming across because again, these things again, right? Like you keep saying, well, women can do it too, no doubt, but it's done differently and in different ways. Like a woman protecting
I agree with
child.
That part. I agree with that part. But then you always go back to describing it as the
but
broad
it's subsumed.
virtue.
So once again, if you have a woman and a man, okay, and they're with their family, a woman, a man, and 2 children, and a mountain lion comes. The man is the first line of defense, the woman the second. It's not the other way around. It would be weird.
Yeah. But then you take that scenario and you give it the big word protecting or whatever the virtue, whatever like the single tagline you give to that is, and then you exclusively say it's a masculine trait, right? Where I don't think that's necessarily the case.
It's exhibited in a specific way that is masculine.
The manifestation of that is the masculine,
but
not the upper virtue that. And then when we talk about these things broadly, people get triggered because it does seem like you're trying to say that women lack this
I don't care if they get triggered or what they think I'm trying to say.
True. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I'm just saying this is where
they can, but
they're just
that's just them trying to be triggered. That's just them being weak. Okay?
Yes.
Well, no, I mean they're calling out the fact that it's because it is a fact that both genders manifest. You've conceded that, right? Both genders manifest these things.
Both men and women can be protected.
That's what they're trying to call attention to because they feel like it's being overlooked when you use this.
Hold on, but here's the difference, though, right? The difference is that being protective as a woman is optional. Being protective as a man is necessary. Right? If a woman decides, and this might be controversial, if she decides she doesn't want to be a mother and wants to get an abortion, that's just that. No one is like, well, maybe you should sacrifice your life to keep your child alive. No one.
I mean, but then we're gonna get into an abortion debate about.
However, exactly, right? But that's just the point, though. Right? It's an optional, right? Like a woman can give birth to a child and then just
more controversial.
Hold on.
Example might be like a kid
Well, you can abandon, as a woman, you could abandon your child at a fire station, and that's just legally all right. As a man, you cannot abandon your child, and people are just like, well, that's fine. You're a deadbeat now. There's something wrong with you as a man if you abandon your child. We see this consistently.
I don't know how true that is.
It's incredibly true. How do we even have the concept of a deadbeat dad? Have you ever heard the concept of a deadbeat mom? No, you haven't.
I'd have to look into that. I don't know what the actual legal process is between dropping off a baby.
It's not. This is this is so frustrating. This is so frustrating. This is so frustrating.
As a woman,
you're trying to. Okay, stop real quick. This is so frustrating, Admiral Love, because I feel you're being just obtuse here. You're just being obtuse because again, we culturally, whether it's right or wrong, set that aside. Culturally, there are expectations of men that are fundamentally different than the expectations of young women.
Yeah,
and to fulfill those expectations, not fulfilling those expectations makes you less of a man. Now, whether it should or not, it's a different question, right? Yeah. And things like deadbeat dad and the expectation for a man to be a proper man, he takes care of his family. He protects his family. If the home is broken into, it's the man that goes downstairs to see what's wrong. It's not the woman, right? In most
I don't
cases,
agree. I haven't disagreed with any of that.
Okay, but then to say that these are both, oh, well, a woman could do this too. Yes, but it misses the larger point where the man is expected to in a way that the woman is not. And that is why we say protectiveness is generally a masculine trait. That isn't to say women can't have that masculine trait, but it's still a masculine trait.
Why not just say like protectiveness in instances of physical violence or physical danger?
I guess, but then
like
we have a word
for that. That's
masculine. That's why we have the word.
I don't disagree with that.
You're going to expect that.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. Yep.
Can I change the subject slightly?
Please help.
Can I ask 𝕵𝖎𝖎? I apologize if I'm not saying that right, but I think it's 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some times when you've seen some dudes do or say something and you thought in your heart, wow, that's a dude. I'm just going to use the word dude instead of masculine or, macho or whatever. So like, that's a dude. Like, when was the last time like some dude did something that really impressed you with his dudeness?
I was driven in a car. Does that count?
Was it a circumstance where like you could not drive yourself? And like some guy stepped up and said, "Hey, I've got a car. I'll drive you to like wherever you need to go."
Sure.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So that's in effect a guy providing you with a physical thing that helped you in your life to get to your goal, whatever that was, for the day or for the hour or the appointment or shopping or wherever you needs to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other examples that come to mind?
Do you have an example of something manly a guy could do? Because I don't know what that would be.
So, okay. An example of what I would say, maybe this will help. So if I see a man, right, decide because his family is struggling, step up and get a second job, just help make sense. I'm like, man, that's a very masculine, very manly thing to do. Good on you, buddy, right? Instead of just where he could just abandon his family and say, man, I can't take care of all these kids. I'm peacing out, right? I'll see you guys later, right? Instead, he stays, even though he's not happy, and decides to support his children and family financially, and do so by getting a second job or a third job even. I think that's a manly thing to do, yes.
I have an example. Brianna once said, girls don't take out the garbage. And so it's my job to make sure the garbage is not overflowing onto the floor. And it's a shit job, and I fucking hate it. And it's disgusting and gross. But you know what? I take out the garbage. And
I have an example. My grandpa recently passed away, and at his funeral service, my uncle told this really funny story about how him and my grandma were on vacation, and they were in this park where there's this carousel horse, and my grandma was very old and frail and kind of a little bit overweight. But she's like, I want to get up on that carousel horse and take a picture because it'll be a fun picture. And apparently my grandpa didn't argue with her, didn't say like, no, you're going to slip or fall, or this is dangerous, or yada, yada, or too much of a pain in the ass. He's like, nope, okay, yeah, we're doing it. And he like, it was a whole undertaking, but he like hoisted her up on that horse and they got that picture, and he just did it with a smile. And to me, my grandpa will always be like my archetype of masculinity that I follow the most. And I think that was a very masculine story.
Doobie, you want to share a
So,
masculine
dude,
story?
I don't know. I mean, I think everyone's. I can't think of a particular story right now, but masculine things could be you're working on a group project and you have the initiative to direct everyone because you can identify what everyone's individual talents are, to direct everyone, to take the initiative and direct everyone and oversee the project and delineate tasks and follow through and make sure everything is going as it should go. I think that's a masculine trait. Not everyone is equally inclined to want to engage in such an effort, because to do so would be to accept responsibility. And say you did do that and then the project didn't work out and it failed. I think people who are not masculine don't take responsibility for the position that they're accepting. So if you're the leader and the whole project falls apart despite your best efforts and all that stuff, you have to take responsibility for that. And I think men take responsibility for that. They don't try to say, oh, but so-and-so said they were going to do X, Y, Z, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the outcome. Responsible men take accountability for their lives. They take accountability for their choices, whether they think it's fair or not. And everyone here who's communicated some kind of story about masculinity has communicated that same general trend, that you take responsibility, you take accountability. Some stuff you have to do as a man sucks, but you suck it up and you do it anyway.
Suck it up.
Suck it up.
You suck it up. And who has to suck it up? Who has to suck it up? Men. Men
Yeah.
have to suck it up. Get over it.
I took out the garbage like 4 times yesterday. It sucked every time.
Let's let 𝕵𝖎 go. Go ahead, 𝕵𝖎.
Do women, because I hear like this a lot, that women lack accountability. So does that mean women lack accountability on purpose because they're not supposed to?
No, it's not that women lack accountability. And it's not about not being, it's not about that it's not supposed to. It's that men are expected
This is
to do
exactly
that.
what
And if a
happens
man,
when you use language that's too broad. I'm just putting it out there. This is exactly what I'm
No.
doing.
I'll give him a point actually, because
No,
if you
no,
made it too
no.
broad, you do have to ask the question: can women be accountable for their actions and the things they do? And the answer is
No,
yes.
it's about the.
Yeah, they should
Well,
be, yeah.
yes, of course they can be. Look, this is what's happening. There is the general trait, which is a virtue, right? And it could be a responsibility, it could be bravery, it could be whatever, right? Taking initiative. It gets shown through this prism, and then this prism diffracts and it generates patterns. And those patterns are the enactment of those virtues through physical action or through a physical manifestation. And then some of those patterns are how men embody that virtue. Some of those patterns are how women embody that virtue. And in those diffraction patterns are contained all the consequences and all the benefits of engaging those actions as a man and as a woman. So both sexes, both genders, all genders have access to these different physical embodiments post diffraction. But those enactments in a particular context, so the actual diffraction pattern that's on the wall, that's either a masculine enactment or it's a feminine enactment. That's what's happening here.
So, but again, it does come down to what I was saying before. Like, there's being masculine is more the traits that we just primarily put onto men. It's not the virtue themselves. It's how men would do it.
It's the
versus, like, what they're
manifestation of
actually
the
doing.
virtue that's
Yeah.
common to, or should be common to everyone.
Yeah.
I want to
So when
give
he says,
I want to give space to Allison real quick. If I
Hi,
may.
Allison.
She's new. And do you have questions for us? Manly men, right?
Oh, wait. So after you ask that, I want to ask Allison the same question I asked 𝕵𝖎.
Very well. Let's see what she's got first.
But go ahead.
Let's see what she's got first, and then you can ask.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I'm not coming for anybody on this panel right now because I haven't seen y'all. But I've listened to less than 10 minutes of it, right? Because I've been in class this whole time. But it did seem like everybody was equating being a man with being masculine. And I'm like, okay, we know that's not acceptable to equate being a woman with being feminine, or at least in society, it seems like we've accepted that. Like, it seems that we've accepted that masculine women are women. And it seems like we have not accepted that feminine men are men. And I don't think that's good for men.
No. One of the things I was saying that like probably before you were listening was like part of being a man is being your true self, and knowing who you are and being true to yourself once you love yourself, then you have space to love other people. And if you don't love yourself, it can manifest in all sorts of hatred, anger, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but I can do that, guy. A woman can do it too.
That is true. That is true. But a man who is in his heart gay, and manifests himself outwardly as gay, is more of a man than a man who's looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but is really hiding all this shit in his mind, in his heart, that's just not worked out and stuff.
A man is being honest, right?
He's being honest with himself, and whether or not his outward appearance is what we traditionally think as macho, or is if he's nerdy like Wesley Crusher. Wesley Crusher in Star Trek Next Generation outwardly is a nerd and skinny and scrawny and can't throw a punch or take a punch, but he saves the Enterprise and he's kind of a dude.
So to kind of maybe address Allison's point here, I think that there are some core things that I would ascribe to being a man and masculinity both, right? That even the most feminine men should do and should aspire to. Mainly, again, I'm going to go back to these 2 points: being responsible for one's own actions and one's consequences of those actions. And 2, being a protector, right? So I don't care how feminine you are as a man. You can wear dresses, makeup, all that. That's fine, right? Do you, right? But when it comes time and someone breaks into the house, you're the one getting out and you're checking who's doing it, right? You're not your significant, not your wife, not your kids. No, you're doing it. But I don't care if you're in a dress doing it. That doesn't matter to me. You are going and checking out. And I think that
I don't know if somebody breaks in my house, both me and my wife are hiding in the closet. I don't know about you
okay,
guys.
well, that's...
Why can't you guys both fight together? See, that's the question, right? Like, if we use the mountain lion example, why does the man fight the mountain lion by himself? Why can't his wife play support? Why can't she be the distraction? He comes up and hits it on top of the head. Like the thing is, and I understand, right?
She can participate, but the onus is still on the man.
Exactly,
right?
and the reason, and this is why, right? Because you're right, Wick, and the reason why is because men have more power than women, at least in the physical sense, right? And with great power comes
usually,
great
but not always,
responsibility.
but usually, yeah.
But overwhelmingly,
yeah.
We can sprinkle in, the Wonder Womans of the world, the Amazons, but overwhelmingly, right? 98% of men are stronger than women. Just facts. It is what it is. Yeah. And with that power comes responsibility. That's why we all link it together. That's the understanding. And that's why we're like, okay, if there's a mountain lion, we're going to put the man who is the strongest in front in order to do something, even though realistically it is a little absurd because humans, unless there's a weapon, humans don't really fight animals barehanded, right?
Yeah, there was a guy. No. Okay, there was this guy that I read about who was fighting a mountain lion. Literally a mountain lion. And he beat the mountain lion because the mountain lion had swallowed his arm. And he just reached in and he grabbed whatever he could and pulled as hard as he could.
That makes sense.
And just basically ripped out the guts of the mountain lion while the mountain lion's like, what the fuck is going on?
That's kind of
and he killed the mountain lion.
But that, and you would, and honestly, overwhelmingly, exactly, you're gonna find that in men more. You're not gonna find a woman with her hand down a mountain lion's mouth.
Most guys not do that.
Rip it. That's just not gonna happen, right? Because again, with that physical power is granted to men because we have it, and we're supposed to use it, and this is the virtue to protect women. This is why we don't like men who are abusive to women, who beat them and sexually assault them, because they're using their power in the wrong way. right? So when it comes again to being masculine, you got to take the traits that we have, and it's how you use it, I think, is what should make us a man. Because again, as
Sure.
I keep forgetting your name. You're up in the corner, Admiral, I think. As you
Admiral,
say,
yep.
it's like, yeah, women can do the same thing. And that's true. They can technically do the same thing, but for them it's more optional, right? A woman fighting the mountain lion is optional. She doesn't have to play support, but if she does, you think even higher because you wouldn't expect someone
let me ask you this.
weaker to do something.
Let me ask you this. It's a mom and a kid walking a mountain trail, and the mountain lion comes. Less of a woman, less of a good mom if she doesn't throw herself in front of the kid.
I would say so.
Depends. I mean, sometimes you run away from a bear, sometimes you throw rocks at the bear, sometimes you just try and become really big and scare the bear. But if she doesn't do anything,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, if she takes action, maybe that action isn't the
pushes
ideal
her kid
thing
down
to do,
and takes off, right? That's
yeah. I
probably a
mean,
bad
yeah.
idea.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think it is
Yeah,
like
I mean, she'd just be a bad
unintentionally
person.
bad to not sacrifice yourself for your kid. Like, you need to sacrifice yourself for your kid, right? Like, that's your job as a parent, like mom or dad. I don't know that I would say it makes her less of a woman. Like, I feel like that phrase is just odd to me, but I definitely think it's bad. Like, you should throw yourself in front of the animal for your child.
So maybe less feminine is the more precise way to phrase it. Do you think that makes her less feminine to not protect her child?
Make her less of a mom.
There's not much. I don't see, like, I mean, getting eaten by a mountain lion is like super feminine. You know what I mean? That's not like a super feminine.
Well, to be clear, what you should do is actually make yourself big and make a lot of noise. You shouldn't attack the mountain lion, and you definitely shouldn't turn around and run away. Those are both very bad ideas for anybody.
Yeah, well, it is much faster. Whatever animal it is, it's gonna be faster. Well, I don't know about you, but it's
Sure.
gonna be faster than me.
Me too. Tubi, go ahead, give it a go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like if a woman chooses even not to defend her child because she's like scared or whatever, society will make excuses for women as to why it could possibly be okay that she did that. She was terrified. She was, she wasn't thinking logically or whatever. If a man does that, there's no excuse. They're demasculinized. For sure, that woman, because you failed to protect her, you totally changed her perception of you, possibly to the point where she's not going to date you anymore. Like, these are real biological realities. I don't know why it's so difficult for some people on here to acknowledge that. Like, this is what's going to happen. No, I mean, well,
I think it's because I'm not on Twitter and I don't see these fucking deranged takes all the time.
I don't think it's.
Wait, hold on. Why is it deranged for a woman who's with somebody who's larger than her, who's more athletically fit than her, sees that person cower when he's the best chance she has of surviving against some animal that's going to rip her and the child apart? Why is it wrong for her to be like, wow, this was a moment where this person was supposed to step up and protect me and our future, and they failed to do it? I don't want to be with that person anymore. Why is that deranged? It's deranged to stay with that person.
I'm saying it would be deranged to say the opposite. Anybody who you said that people make excuses for women in that situation. I don't know anybody who would do that. I think everybody.
There's
pretty
bad.
Oh my god!
People
oh my god!
You spend more time on Twitter than me, so I don't fucking know.
It's not
I think
Twitter.
Twitter is
Maybe
like
that is what it
on
is.
Twitter.
It's not about being on Twitter.
You know, it's like a concentration of bad takes.
Okay.
I think most people will agree with you that that's bad behavior. Yeah.
I guess we could hope, but I've definitely, I know exactly what he's talking about. I've seen very many people bend over backwards to defend women doing crappy things or banning their children. So
failing to
I know what he's talking about.
This is just one example of what a woman. Sorry, Allison, really quickly. It's just a simple example of a woman failing to exhibit bravery in a situation, and there's a segment of society which will find an excuse for that. If a man tries to do that, they won't. And this is why I'm saying the virtue itself. Yeah, this is why I'm saying it's really about the full diffraction pattern that we're calling masculine as opposed to feminine. The woman can choose not to engage in the virtue and can still possibly be seen as, maybe not virtuous, but there's an excuse that can be made where it's like she won't suffer a consequence because of it.
Yeah.
The masculine action, the masculine enactment of that virtue is the man has to make that choice. If he doesn't make that choice, he fails to be masculinized. And then for Allison, you were saying, well, we can't say that masculine women aren't women. Well, no. As a matter of fact, they are women. We wouldn't say that they're feminine, though. It's not the exact same thing. Biologically, they are women. If you look at their karyotype, they have an XX chromosomal makeup. They're a woman. But we wouldn't say their actions are feminine. And the fact that we have to specify, oh, this is a masculine woman, makes it seem clear that we're not just talking about what their biological makeup is, we're talking about the enactment of certain actions or certain virtues in the real world. And for some reason, masculine women seem to be enacting virtues in a way that more mirrors how men typically enact them. So I don't think those two things are even necessarily the same thing. Saying someone's masculine doesn't necessarily mean that they're a man. It means they're operating as if they were a man. They're enacting virtues like a man would enact them.
Okay. I wanted to give the floor to Frank to
Allison
ask Allison the question. Go ahead.
No. Allison had a point that she wanted to make, and I want her to go first.
Did you?
Oh, well, okay, there were people saying, like, oh, well, they would let women get away with, like, obviously shitty behavior. And, I mean, I don't really care about identifying as a feminist or whatever, but feminists have a concept for that called benevolent sexism. Wick has a concept for that. He calls it neo-misogyny. But it basically is resting on the idea that women are less capable, and so we make more excuses for them. So you can say, like, oh, it benefits you, right? Because you get away with shit that you shouldn't get away with. And I'm like, yes, but the downside is the like implication there is that people think you are less competent, like less capable. So.
Wow.
Frank, go
that's
ahead.
a good point, actually.
That is definitely something to think about. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I hadn't really thought about before. So, thank you, Austin. That's an interesting point.
You had a question for her though that you wanted to ask?
Oh, assuming that there's no follow-ons to like what Allison just said.
I mean, I talk about that a lot here, honestly. So people have heard me.
Okay, all right, okay. What? I should watch the show.
True. See, here's a quote that'll sum it up for you, right?
Watch the show more.
Feminism is the radical idea that women are people. Okay.
Oh my God. Really?
It's crazy, right?
Wow.
So they should be
that is
like people. I know, it's crazy.
Insane.
If only that were the case. If only feminists really adhered to that. The world would
Okay,
be
what?
a lot different.
Anyway, for the question.
So the question I wanted to ask Allison was something I asked 𝕵𝖎𝖎 before, which was, has there been a time when you saw a guy do something or say something and you thought, wow, that's a dude?
I mean, I don't know. I really admire my father. I think my father is like a very, very, I mean, he like takes a lot of shit, you know what I mean? And he just actually like, he doesn't let people walk all over him or anything, but he just lets things roll off his shoulders in a way that I have like always struggled with. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of a specific example, but I just feel like he's, and he does sort of typify like a lot of like masculine virtues or whatever. He's a very stoic man. He's very, he's extremely responsible. He's very good with money. I'm bad with money. My mom is like not the best with money. So I hate to be stereotypical, but like, yeah, I don't know that I would phrase it like, oh, that's a dude. My dad does coincidentally say the word dude a lot, but like, you know, I mean, I really like, I would say that my dad is a positive masculine role model.
When you said stuff rolls off his shoulders, are you talking about like people insulting him or like bad things happening
like
or
doing stupid shit? Like he can just be like, "That's a dumb motherfucker," and like move on with his life. Like he doesn't like let it like sit there and fester and like bother him for like the rest of the day. You know what I mean? Like that's
a dumb motherfucker.
Stoicism, gang. Stoicism, the ability to have bad situations, insults, or things and not let it affect you. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a masculine thing. Speaking of stoicism and not things letting affect you, unfortunately, I'm not perfect and I am hungry. And it's probably time to end the show. Thank you, one and all, for
this was
being
fun.
Part of the after show. This was great.
Can I give one more example of what I think is like really good dude behavior? This will be quick.
Briefly,
John F. Kennedy.
And then we're gonna do the closing. So yeah.
Okay, so this will be my closing thing. So two things. So there's this one incident before he was president, and people were saying John F. Kennedy is an awesome guy, And like there's a whole bunch of people that are out like riding horses in the wilderness. They come to a river, and everyone's like, "Well, shit! Like we can't cross this river. Like fuck that!" It's like, and let's just turn around. And John Kennedy's like, "No, go!" And he takes his horse and he jumps into the river and he crosses the river on his horse. And everyone's like, "Oh shit!" And like you could do that. And then everybody gets over on their horse because it's like, "Wow, he's John F. fucking Kennedy." And the other incident is PT 109. So he's in this plywood boat that's like 20 feet long because, you know, the Japanese sank all of our big ships in Pearl Harbor a couple months before. And they get hit by a Japanese destroyer, but he manages to save everybody and sends a secret message on the coconut, and they all get rescued. But they only got hit by this Japanese destroyer because they were all fucking drunk that night. When they were supposed to be at war, and they were drunk. He was probably leading them in carousing, but he took responsibility after that, and he probably got a guy killed during the collision because they were all drunk, and he like saved them. He like he had fucked up, and he like turned everything around and like saved all their asses except for the one guy that died.
Except for
that's a dude.
Except for the one guy that died
because they were all drunk and they got hit by a Japanese boat. Like this huge Japanese boat that's making like a ton of noise in the middle of the night. You get hit by it. How does that happen? Because you're drunk and you're not paying attention.
And you're not fulfilling your responsibility. Gang,
exactly, but you turned around and you fixed it. That's
great.
what a dude does.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So, in summary, masculinity isn't something we can draw strict lines around, but we can look at it in a generic sense, and it does exist, and it should exist. I think, right, that we've had some great examples of masculinity on this panel. It's been a great discussion, both in the closed and the open. Gang, if you like the content, hit that like button on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on Twitch, hit that follow button. Throw me some bits, throw me some subs. Really appreciate it. What we got coming up this week? Tomorrow is our open call-in show. We're gonna be doing open call-ins all day with President Sunday. Wednesday, we're gonna have my first ever Kick stream. Okay, so we're gonna be streaming on Kick. So you won't be able to find me here. You'll be able to find me on YouTube and Kick, and I hope you come and join us. And we're gonna be talking about voting. Does it matter? And should we vote blue no matter who? I guess we'll find out.
Yes.
I agree, but some people disagree. We'll see.
And that's fine.
Yep. Well, it's not. We're gonna teach them the right way. So for now, I'm gonna bid thee adieu. We're gonna raid out into Prime Kai, and make sure that you spam my emotes, and let them know it's a hate raid. Okay. So for
peace
that,
and love, everyone.
Peace and love. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. It's really fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, Wick.